Chapter 81, Destroyer of Humanity. So, you're all devils. Kisara looked shocked. After Lynn's explanation, she appeared even more confused. Are you kidding me? Yuuko. As soon as Lynn spoke, Yuuko revealed her wings. Kisara stammered, wings. Wings. Could it really be true? Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Tendo-ryu Menkyo-Kaden Tendo-ryu sword drawing technique. Tendo-ryu Aikido technique. Strength growth rate increased. Agility growth rate increased. Sword Ghost. Activates Shura Devil mode, increases all stats. Revenge Devil. Vow of Vengeance, marks a target, adds them to the hatred camp. Queen of Revenge, deals special damage to marked enemies, the higher the hatred, the higher the damage. Devil Transformation, final evil finisher. Since beginning his peerage, this was the longest blessing message Lynn had ever seen. And you started as a mid-class devil? You've got incredible potential. Kisara's eyes lit up. Oh? So I'm really strong. Very strong. Lynn nodded without hesitation. Just based on her skill set alone, it was obvious Kisara was absurdly powerful. And she even had 2 skill trees. Among his peerage members, she was terrifyingly strong. Even Psycho, who had the best growth potential until now, had started off as a low-class devil. But Kisara? She was immediately a middle-class devil. That proved how remarkable she was. Lynn copied her blessing info. Kisara got dressed and checked it out herself. When she saw her blessing details, she nodded in satisfaction. Especially when she saw the skill Revenge Devil, her eyes lit up like bulbs. This skill is so me. She lived for revenge. And a special attack against enemies was perfect. She once again entered her dark and twisted state, gripping Lynn's shoulders with both hands, her pale fingers digging in tightly. Master Lynn, when do we start destroying humanity? She couldn't wait to cut Tendo Kikunojo and the rest of the surviving family into pieces. To be continued. Junk Dog's note, well, the book was deleted on WN, so I re-uploaded it again. Let's hope we stay afloat there. New name for WN readers, Multiverse, My Life as a Devil Clan Founder. No rush. The primary goal of the peerage is to save the cursed children. Destroying humanity is just a side task. Lynn gently patted Kisara's head, pulling her out of her darkened state. This darkened state, could it be the Shura Devil mode mentioned in her Sword Ghost skill? Lynn glanced at the additional skills in her status bar but had no intention of testing them himself. Kisara gained a lot from her reincarnation as a devil. Not only did it compensate for some of his peerage's melee weaknesses, but the Vow of Vengeance and Revenge specialized effects were also very intriguing. A dragon type, but customized for hunting enemies? Kisara, meanwhile, felt the warmth on her head and her thoughts cleared up considerably. No rush? Well, since Lynn said not to rush, then she wouldn't. Her loyalty was unwavering. After all, the master title at the top of her blessing sheet wasn't just for show. Besides, the power granted to her was already more than enough for revenge. She just needed to be patient for a bit. Yes, patience. Kisara panted softly. She wasn't sure if it was because she'd become a devil or something else. But for the first time, she wasn't overwhelmed by her thirst for revenge. It felt good. That chaotic state of mind had become more controllable. The constant whispers in her ears had faded significantly. Finally, a bit of peace. She looked at Lynn, an inexplicable emotion flickering in her eyes. Because she had become his peerage member, she felt at ease. I must repay him properly. With a serious expression, Kisara looked ready to devote her life to Lynn's cause. Lynn, is there anything I can do? She was in top condition. The mental torment was gone, the issue of renal failure had been resolved, and her goal of revenge could now be pursued at any time. Truly. She felt better than she ever had before. It felt like Lynn had given her a second life. So, she couldn't just sit around doing nothing. Please give me an order. Lynn didn't hesitate. They were all peerage members, there was no need to be shy about giving them tasks. And it just so happened that Kisara's status as president of the Tendo Civil Security Corporation could be used. Taking in the cursed children in the outer districts was only a matter of time. But now, Lynn's attention had turned toward the cursed children within the city. Have Psycho and the others register as police officers through your company first. Having official police status would make operating within the city much easier. And they might even be able to make contact with the cursed children under the supervision of the government or IISO. As for Seitenshi, Lynn's eyelid twitched slightly. He didn't feel much when watching the anime. On the surface, she was still rather charming. But she was a useless ruler. Giving Lynn permission to build the shelter might have been her only real contribution. After giving Kisara a general overview of his peerage members and their current missions, Psycho, bring over a phone. He handed Kisara a phone that could connect to the main world network, as usual. Dash. Lynn's Peerage Harem Group. Ding. Sword Ghost has joined the chat group. Kisara stared at the group name. Her cheeks flushed slightly, but she quickly pretended not to notice and focused on checking out the group members. When she saw Seedenshi's name, her eyes froze for a second. She looked up from the phone and at Lynn, unable to help herself. Seedenshi, is really your servant? Lynn shrugged. I told you, but you didn't believe me. Kisara opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. The supreme ruler of the Tokyo area, someone else's servant? Who would believe it even if you told them? Seedenshi, betrayed humanity. Kisara's mind went boom. This was more shocking than meeting an actual devil. By the way, she was the first devil I reincarnated in your world. And, she was the one who summoned me here. Kisara. Lynn's Peerage Harem Group. Sword Ghost, Seedenshi, you're the one who summoned a devil here? Seedenshi? A few days later. Lynn's Peerage Harem Group. Kashuma Jayaka Yutaa, Master, someone claiming to be Yukinashita Yukino's sister is looking for you. Main world. Shuchin Academy, entrance of the Supernatural Investigation Club. Yutaa narrowed her eyes slightly as she looked at the mature woman standing before her. This woman was clearly here for something related to Yukinashita Yukino. Lately, Yukino's condition had been noticeable to everyone. Miss, so, has your club president agreed? Yukinashita Harino smiled as she asked. She was free today, so she had come directly. But the club president wasn't in the room. Did he go off to deal with a supernatural incident? Harino was a bit curious. Dash. Ding. Sigma man, no time. Yutaa put her phone away and said with a faint smile, sorry, our president is busy right now. He doesn't really have time. She took a breath and smiled politely. Then, maybe I can invite you to a nearby cafe. Yutaa smiled again. Ah, sorry. I have to go too. The smile on Yukino Harino's face froze. Yutaa ignored her and pushed open the door to the Supernatural Investigation Club. Her devil tome was usable now, so she couldn't afford to waste time and delay her master's plans. Black Bullet World. Lynn put down his phone. Yukinashita Harino or whatever, he didn't have time to deal with her right now. It was just some trivial matter anyway. He was still focused on taking in the cursed children and increasing his strength. After researching the reincarnated cursed children over the past few days, they had identified the number of cursed children in the outer districts near the Qigong district. A total of 4,365. And there were dozens of similar outer zones across the 4.7 wards of Tokyo area. By extrapolation, the total number of cursed children in the Tokyo area alone would be around 200,000. And counting the scattered cursed children living within the city, that number was likely even higher. Beyond Tokyo, the country had 4 other major zones, Sapporo, Sendai, Osaka, and Hakata. A rough estimate. There were nearly 1 million lolis in the entire country. If you included the whole world. Lin shook his head. No point thinking that far ahead right now. First, he'd gather all the cursed children in the Tokyo area. Those 200,000 should be enough to give him a solid power boost. Once he had that, expanding into other areas would be much easier. Buzz. A dazzling white light flashed in the shelter. Yutaa emerged from the door. Her eyes landed on Lin's lips, and she subconsciously licked her own. Then her cheeks flushed. Master, I'm ready. Huff, huff. After using the devil tome to transfer several more batches of cursed children, Yutaa panted lightly. She looked at Lin with seductive eyes. Master, please replenish my magic. Lin rewarded her generously. In truth, Lin could have handled the transfer of over 4,000 cursed children on his own. It would just take more time due to how scattered they were. That's why, by acting separately with Yutaa, their efficiency was significantly higher. Whenever Yutaa was nearly drained, she would stay in the shelter and wait for Lin to return and restore her magic. However, after doing this several times in a row, Yutaa was noticeably overdrawn. It wasn't a matter of stamina or magic. It was her mental state. She was mentally exhausted. Lin noticed this as well. After replenishing her magic, he said, "All right, Yutaa. Leave the rest to me." "No." Yutaa shook her head firmly. "I can still keep going." Lin frowned. "I don't want you pushing yourself. It would only slow things down a little, no big deal." Naturally, he didn't want any of his peerage members suffering because of him. Even so, Yutaa still shook her head. "I really can still. Just..." She pursed her lips and hesitated. Lin narrowed his eyes, already guessing the reason. Finally, Yutaa bit her lip lightly, leaned into Lin's arms, tilted her chin slightly, and exhaled sweetly. "Master. Could you, maybe increase the dosage?" "Dosage increase?" Lin narrowed his eyes at Yutaa and noticed her pale neck had already flushed red. Yuta left Lin's arms, a light mist covering her red eyes. Energy restored. Fully recharged. Looking at the rejuvenated Yuta, Lin frowned slightly in thought. He opened his status panel and checked the recovery devil skill. It doesn't say anything about mental recovery. Lin was puzzled. Skills acquired from reincarnated special class devils were supposed to be a level higher in nature. So it would be reasonable for his recovery devil to restore mental fatigue as well. But, seeing Yuta's current state, Lin just shook his head helplessly. Whatever, just consider it effective. In terms of quality, his body fluids were certainly more potent than his saliva. At worst, he could just give her a shot directly. Well, she'd probably be thrilled about that. They worked almost until midnight. Over 4,000 cursed children had finally been transferred. Phew. Yuta wiped the sweat from her forehead and let out a deep breath. It's done. She pressed her temples and frowned. Her head was pounding like it was splitting apart. She had pushed herself too hard. But, she glanced at Lin's smile and couldn't help smiling herself. It was all worth it. Lin praised, thanks to you, Yuta. Otherwise, I probably would have been busy until dawn. Yuta shook her head and forced a smile. She was totally showing off. Seeing her like this, Lin thought for a moment and said, I'll give you a reward tonight. He decided to give her a high-quality energy injection. Reward. Yuta's eyes lit up instantly. The headache disappeared immediately. Her gaze sparkled with excitement as she asked, anything I want? Lin looked at her in surprise. Why did it feel like her battery was recharged just from hearing that? He hummed in response, curious to hear what kind of reward she wanted. Even though the energy injection was inevitable, if Yuta had a specific reward in mind, he wouldn't be stingy. After getting Lin's reply, Yuta blushed. She hesitated for a bit, then took a deep breath. Master, can you rest at our home tonight? Her lashes trembled slightly, and her gaze was a little shy. Our home? Lin paused for a second. He had several residences, he wasn't sure which one she meant. That. Yuta's voice was soft as a whisper. I mean, our home. Lin suddenly understood, then gave her a strange look. Isn't that just his house? He had built it up with hard-earned effort. Even though it was a bit small now, it held a lot of sentimental value. And now this woman with just one sentence was claiming half of it. Still, Lin understood what she meant and nodded easily. He wanted to see what little scheme Yuta was cooking up. Seeing that Lin agreed, Yuta was overjoyed, though slightly panicked. Then, I'll go back first. Yuta quickly left the Black Bullet world. The bunny girl outfit she bought that day, she finally had an excuse to wear it. Watching her flustered exit, Psycho couldn't help but chuckle. Lin had too many women now. If she didn't fight for her chances, she'd never get a turn. Watching them, Psycho subconsciously touched her belly. I want to get pregnant with Master's devil baby. Back at the shelter. More than 4,000 cursed children were gathered in one place. They looked nervous and timid. However, under the guidance of the first batch of reincarnated cursed children, none of them panicked. They stood quietly, waiting for arrangements. It's really a sight to behold. As a member of Lin's peerage, Kisara came by to watch. Seeing the densely packed cursed children, she couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Lin also felt a headache coming on. Back when he was focused solely on saving the cursed children, he hadn't realized just how complicated the follow-up would be. Gathering them was just the first step. Next would be reincarnation into the peerage. And accommodation, food, clothing, education. Those were all major issues to address later. But right now, the biggest problem was space. The shelter was already too small. Lin began to consider relocating a group to the zombie world. Psycho, check out the zombie world tomorrow and see if there's a place that can house tens of thousands. Clear it out. Yes, Master. Psycho nodded without hesitation. Lin calculated mentally. Tens of thousands should be enough for now. Besides, the strength of the zombies wasn't particularly high. The reincarnated devil-cursed children could handle them without much danger, so there was no real safety concern. After settling the children, Lin didn't plan to start the reincarnation ceremony immediately. After a whole day of work, even Yuako looked mentally exhausted. The cursed children had also spent the entire day in anxiety and fear, leaving them emotionally drained. Not to mention, it was late at night, and most of them could barely keep their eyes open. Let's wait until tomorrow. Lin. He quietly backed away and looked again. It really was Yuta's room. Lin silently stared at her long legs wrapped in black stockings on the bed. Looking upward, her hips were slightly raised, and at her tailbone was a small ball of white fluff, like a rabbit's tail. And then, Lin's gaze fixed on a faint touch of pink, his expression turning complicated. As if she had noticed Lin's stare, Yuta's hips trembled slightly. Lin exhaled heavily and slammed the bedroom door shut. Yuta was always so understanding, Lynn naturally didn't resist. Smack! He couldn't hold back and slapped her hard. The crisp sound echoed through the room. HNNN. Yuta buried her face in the pillow, letting out a muffled moan. Her face burned with heat. Lynn leaned down. Yuta, are you ready to receive your reward? Yuta slightly raised her head, ha. Her eyes were hazy. Yes master please. Reward me. Lynn paused for a moment, then said, all right, prepare to accept your reward. HNN. Turning her body to face him. Dash. Lynn took her lower lip between his. Yuta shuddered. Smoothly, he ran his hand around her waist, pulling her closer to him. She responded with another gasp, bobbing her head against his, moaning straight into his mouth. Shyly, her inexperienced hands remained by her sides, not sure of what to do. Gently, showering her with tender kiss, he pulled her close to him, bringing her to rest on his laps. Yuta shuddered the moment her bunny-tailed backside landed on his groin. She felt the thickening bulge, pressing against her ass, poking her with a relentless energy. She shifted forward only slightly and felt Lynn's groan. Feeling the surge, he slipped away from her mouth, sloping downward with a barrage of slippery kisses, landing on her neck with a sensual thud. Master! Lynn drew her closer, moving his palm along the curve of her back, sliding his other hand under her left thigh. She moaned, melting as his mouth landed on her right boob. He trailed circles around her flesh with his tongue, forming clouds of moisture on her bunny costume. By the time he reached in to suck her, she melted in his arms. Her shoulders collapsed. Akhun! A sharp gasp came shrieking out. She tried to bit her lip, afraid of moaning. But Lynn teased out her breasts, sucking her erect nipple, sending shock waves through her. Yeah master! Aham! Her thighs gripped his torso in between them. Lynn's hands slipped through her stockings, sliding upwards, squeezing her fleshy thighs, carefully groping upwards. Yuta gripped his head closer, moaning as his lips trailed the curve of her breasts. Beneath her stockings, Lynn's hands explored freely. With a quick tug, he grabbed the stockings and pulled it apart. Yuta raised her hands in surrender, allowing him the pleasure of tearing off her stockings. It was barely over her head when she felt Lynn's tongue on her other nipple. Master, she moaned. Lynn gripped her left breast, sucking and sucking in frenzied fever. Her moans filled the air. She thrust her hips forward, grinding on his cock through his pants. Come here, he said, pulling his eyes away from her breasts. Shyness leaked out of her inexperienced eyes. With both hands, she covered her cheeks, waiting for what was to come. Lynn took a deep breath, leaned backwards on his knees, and lowered 2 fingers to her pussy. On the bed, she tensed, covering her eyes. His forefinger slid gently along her slit, parting the folds of her small pussy. She gasped, jerking her chest upwards. He slid that one finger higher, above her vulva, landing on the tip of her clitoris. Aham, she moaned quietly, as if afraid to make a noise. She wasn't wet. He chuckled. Well, time to fix that then. Using his right knee, he nudged her left thigh slightly, pushing it further apart. Her back stretched on the bed, shyly parting her legs for Lynn. Damn, she wasn't even wearing panties. She really came prepared. Through the outer folds of her hairless vagina, the stub of his fingers slipped into the pink of her pussy. Her tightness gripped his finger. Yuta, still covering her eyes, held her breath. Lynn leaned forward. The bed crunched under his shifting weight. Yuta's neck curled backwards, her pulse began to quicken, and her eyelids clamped shut as Lynn forced the remaining length of his finger inside of her. Damn! Her back skittered along the sheets, attempting to slide away. But he thrust his finger forward again. She gasped this time, gasping again as he withdrew his finger. Through her fleshy folds, his finger slipped out again. He could see the soft pink of her innards. The scent of her organ laced his finger. With a savage rush, he inhaled deeply, savoring her scent. Your scent, he declared aloud, it's intoxicating. Yuta stayed breathless, feeling her lungs burn as she held in the air. Lynn heaved again, and slid his finger again with the second thrust. By the 5th stroke, he felt her body begin to relax. Her shoulders slumped. Her hands peeled away from her flushed cheeks. Her thighs widened on the bed, parting further and further away for him. Lynn's face squeezed in flushes of red. His grim eyes burned black, savoring the tightness of her walls. Still fingering her, he eyed her stiff nipples, and groaned. In a second, he fell forward, latching onto her breasts. The next few moments passed by in a blur. Akhun mphhhf master. Yuta's moans rose with an intensity slicing. Her breaths came rasping through the opening of her nostrils. You taste so damn good, Yuta, Lynn commented. Lynn showered her with affirmations. She mumbled a reply, something gibberish and incoherent. Her eyes were closed shut. Her jaw hung loose at the hinge. Her pink lips were parted ever so slightly. Clearly, she wasn't present in this world anymore. Lynn quietly slipped his finger out, sliding out of her vagina. I'll be putting it in. In a flash, he whipped out the massive bulge from his pants, lowering himself between her legs. Gripping his fat cock by the throbbing tip, Lynn glanced at her cute face and almost felt sorry for her. Poor Yuta, he shook his head, she doesn't know what's about to hit her. As his pants dropped to the floor, his knees immediately hit the foam. Yuta must have sensed the dip in the bed, as she widened her thighs, waiting patiently. Ak-huk-k. The breath came wheezing out of her throat, nostrils, and mouth. Yuta's eyes flared open in shock. Her brows huddled in confusion as the tip of the massive cock assaulted her vulva. Lynn was unnaturally horny at this point. He actually wanted to fuck this long-legged girl crazy. So, wickedly, he thrusted his dick, plunging it further into the tightness of her pussy. Yuta was not ready. Not at all. Hey 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 hey. A sharp gasp escaped. Lynn's waist thrust forward again. This time, she cried. Akn. Hot air rasped out of her nostrils. Her head jerked forward, glaring at Lynn with rebellious eyes. That's it. Lynn said to himself. With each inch, an agonizing wail came screeching from her throat. Her fingers sank into the sheets, gasping and moaning. Her back ascended from the bed, collapsing in violent exhaling breaths. Akn. She screamed as he thrust his hips forward officially for the first stroke. He began to fuck her mindless. With each thrust, Yuta's pussy adjusted to his pounding. So good, so fucking good, master. He let go of her thighs, letting them sink to the sheets. When he pulled out suddenly, a sharp cry rang out of her mouth. She jerked suddenly, crying out in intermittent gasps. In a deep tone, he rasped. Turn over. With the promptness of a soldier, Yuta obeyed. On her elbows, she turned her body, rolling on the sheets. Lynn wasted no time. His arms lunged for her ass, squeezing in rich cups, lifting each butt cheek in firm grasps. Move your knees, he grunted. Buttocks up, and her upper body resting on her elbows, Yuta slid her left knee a few inches to the side. Lynn eyed the curving slope of her back and groaned. In a moment, he got behind her. He knelt between her calves. The intoxicating scent of her vagina slid up into his nostrils. Her leaking fluids spilled out, covering the outer walls of her vulva. Are you ready? She moaned. Yes, master. Want me to stick it in? She moaned again. No, beg me. Say please. Her hair shook as she arched her head upwards. From her tiny lips, he heard the magic words. Master, please, give it to Dash. He plunged in the tip before she could finish. With both hands, he gripped the sides of her waist. Her ass cheeks contracted as he heaved out. His cock began to swell dangerously. Yuta felt it with each wet stroke. It grazed the tenderness of her sweet spots in repeated flushes. Above the slapping sounds of his balls on her vulva, she cried. Master, I need to pee. A flash of amusement split across his eyes. Please, I need to pee. She begged. Poor girl, he smiled, has she never come before? Master, pee please, she choked, it's coming. Yes it is. It's coming. Wickedly, Lynn refused to answer her. He collapsed fully on top of her, sending her ass to the foam. He pinned her under, with no room to escape. With a sweeping arch, his right arm swept across the bed, pressing her head down into the pillow. Master. He began to pound. Her ass cheeks jiggled in soft claps. His dick, colored white from her cream, dipped in and out of her pussy. Fuck, he groaned, this position is perfect for a tight pussy. Yuta still thought she needed to pee. She thrashed her head wildly in the bed, kicking her legs. She clenched her pussy walls, maybe thinking it would keep him out. But Lynn kept pounding her groin. He felt the build-up of her orgasm. Arg no. Finally, with a loud scream, she let go. The golden showers erupted from her. TSSS. 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 The splattering wet echoes, the squeaking bed, and the muffled cries, all rang out. On the heels of each other, the sounds of their pleasure filled the air. The hot liquid sliced out of her groin, sending electric tingles all through her body. She cried repeatedly, wiggling her head, curling her toes. But his hand kept her pinned down. Lynn fucked her in mindless. His dig plugged her pussy, letting it out only when he slid out of her. Yuta screamed her lungs out. Lynn didn't stop. His fat cock pulsed in her, sliding against her pleasure spots in rapid thrusts. The mindless orgasm continued to flow and flow, droning out waves of rippling orgasms. I can't hold it in. Lynn said to her, I'm going to release now. She answered weakly, wait master, turn me over please. Lynn pulled out, hurriedly flipped her over, then lowered himself into her. The penetration this time was smooth. She lifted her thighs, raising up her knees, giving him more room. I'm coming, he announced. Yuta howled, feeling the cock expand inside of her. She gasped. Hey Aiten. Master, it's coming again. She howled, it's coming. Let's do it together. Yuta then lifted her hands to his chest, found his nipples, and gave them a gentle tug. Master. Yuta screamed as his dick burst in her. The hot semen, thick and creamy, erupted violently. She clenched, tightening her inner walls. Each stroke felt like he was being fucked and sucked. Yuta, not completely aware of what she was doing, clamped her walls tighter, milking his cock in tight squeezes. On his chest, augmenting his orgasm, were her fingers on his nipples. Splat. 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 Fluids everywhere. Yuta didn't even know she was still coming. She arched her head backwards, letting her hair fall. Closing her eyes, she felt the warm trickle of his semen floating into her. Lynn jerked suddenly. His dick throbbed even harder. Yuta's body reacted, shuddering. Both her shoulders quaked. Her toes curled. Slowly, a sleepy sensation, like a warm blanket, began to overshadow her. The slippery sounds of their lovemaking began to fade away. Her fingers slipped from his nipples. And her eyes began to drop. By the time Lynn pulled out of her, Yuta had already passed out. He collapsed on her side, sweating profusely, feeling the violent pounding of his heart. What the fuck was that? He wondered. The next day. Early morning. Yuta slowly woke up in a daze. Every move made her tremble with little jolts, her body spasming involuntarily. Lynn gently blew against her earlobe. Yuta, I really got to know a new side of you last night. HNN. Yuta turned her eyes away in embarrassment. Those long-suppressed emotions just couldn't stay bottled up anymore. Smack. Yuta, the reward isn't over yet. Ahehe. Yuta's eyes widened in panic. Wait. I can't handle any more. Shuchin, faculty office. Natsuki Minamiya emotionlessly signed off on another leave request. Is it your turn to request leave for him this time? Maiko smiled awkwardly and curled her toes. That. Maiko lowered her head and whispered, also, it's Kashuma Jayaka Yuta-senpai from second year. Natsuki's hand froze mid-motion. A moment later, she let out a sarcastic chuckle. Haha, this devil of chaos and temptation. Outside the faculty office. Maiko's shoulders slumped as she walked out, completely dejected. So. Yuta-senpai finally made her move. What about her? Black Bullet World, afternoon. Mahiru rested her cheek on her palm, watching the cursed children in front of her, though her gaze was distant. She murmured, Master still hasn't arrived. Yuako floated nearby, face flushed unnaturally, her body twisting in midair. That's so nice. Yuko wants to be rewarded too. Mahiru looked up at her. This ghost girl was definitely a formidable rival. With no concept of boundaries, she always tried to get close to Lynn and offer him all kinds of rewards. Another hour passed. Finally, the figures of Lynn and Yuta appeared at the gate. Yuta clung to Lynn's arm, tilting her chin up slightly as her eyes swept past Mahiru and the others. Her posture looked a bit odd. Were her thighs pressed too tightly together? Mahiru's expression stiffened, her hands clenching slightly. She felt provoked. Yuako, however, was oblivious. The moment she saw Lynn, she flung herself at him. Bouncing in the air, she stared at him eagerly. Master, don't you want to taste a ghost? Lynn glanced down at her, and Yuako squeezed herself tighter, letting Lynn see clearly. Not gonna lie, he was actually tempted. Yuta glared sharply at Yuako. Her aura surged for a moment before she reached out and yanked the over-enthusiastic ghost girl back. You thirsty old virgin. Don't delay Master's serious business. Business? Mahiru looked at the time and the corner of her mouth twitched. 5 in the afternoon. Wasn't that enough? From last night until now. Her thoughts began to spiral. Yuta-senpai, just what did she do? Maiko was curled up in a corner. You can't see me. You can't see me. Hey, Maiko, come with me to level up. Maiko froze, wanting to cry. Hannah. Read the damn air. While everyone in the peerage bickered, Lynn began performing the reincarnation ceremony for the cursed children. At the same time. Outer region. A large truck drove in. The bright IISO logo was printed on the side. Boom. The truck came to a halt near a sewer. Several workers in uniform climbed out, expressions filled with disgust. Behind them, a burly man got out, along with a girl who had a blank expression. The man barked, hurry up and grab a few to report back. Clang. One of them rudely pried open the manhole cover and yelled inside, you little bastards. Get the hell out. Time to enjoy a better life. Ha ha ha. The others burst out laughing. Enjoy life? More like cruel training, and dying as disposable tools to protect them and Tokyo. But, for these children to die as tools was already the highest honor they could receive. Several men sneered inwardly. This group of monsters deserved no better. Even the burly man's gaze was full of contempt. But, Time passed, and not a single cursed child came out. They started frowning. Damn it, do you want me to go down there myself? He looked at the disgusting environment below and cursed. F***ck. Really giving them too much face. Someone eventually went down while swearing and froze. Where are they? After reporting the situation, the others looked at each other, dumbfounded. Did they move somewhere else? One of them frowned. As an international organization managing the cursed children, the IISO knew every hideout in the outer areas. Whenever they were low on money or tools, they'd come to collect a few. Yet today, they hit a dead end right from the start. What rotten luck! Let's try the next place. But, as the evening wore on, the entire outer district was empty. Not a single cursed child could be found, only a few Gastria remained. Even after checking every hideout listed in their books, there was not a trace of them. Several IISO members stood in the now empty outer area, stunned. Where the hell were all the cursed children? After night fell, Lynn finally completed the reincarnation of over 4,000 cursed children into his peerage. Ha! Even Lynn couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Among them, the last one to reincarnate into his peerage looked a bit familiar. She was a character who appeared in the original story. Ko Senju. Lynn gently patted her head. Ko Senju looked up at him, her expression flat and emotionless. Thank you, Lord Lin, for giving me a new life. Her tone was calm. Although she was expressing gratitude, there wasn't the slightest trace of emotion in her voice. Lin kept his hand on her head, a thoughtful glint in his eyes. Midori Fuse and Ko Senju. Both were characters who had appeared in the original work. Lin had previously asked Kisara and confirmed that she had just left the Tendo family and established the Tendo Civil Security Corporation. Which meant, the current Black Bullet World timeline was far earlier than the original plot. The fact that Midori Fuse and Ko Senju appeared as cursed children in the outer area only further supported this. He lowered his head slightly and met Ko's calm gaze. Even though she had reincarnated into a devil and the Gastria virus in her body had been eliminated, she still showed no emotions. But she must be happy. Lin lowered his gaze to the status window on her back. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skill. Dolphin-type Gastria factor. Intelligence enhanced. Memory enhanced. She hadn't reincarnated into a special type devil. Lin thought about it. But that was expected. Although Ko Senju appeared in the original series, she wasn't particularly special. Among the various Gastria types, the dolphin-type virus wasn't anything remarkable. Additionally, unlike Midori Fuse, who possessed the ability to sense fate, Ko didn't have any special extras beyond basic stat enhancements. A standard low-class devil, nothing unusual. Ko silently stared at Lin's face, as if trying to engrave it in her memory. Then, she calmly placed both hands on her stomach and said, "Hungry." Lin. Why does this feel like I just picked up a kitten? Shaking his head, Lin ordered someone to prepare food. But then, he glanced around the shelter, which was packed with heads, and his eyelids twitched uncontrollably. Mahiru, can you handle this? Lin was slightly worried about her condition. Even if she was a devil now, feeding over 4,000 hungry devils wasn't going to be easy. Some time later, Mahiru lay slumped over a table, completely exhausted. Her hands were shaking. Her spatula was practically emitting smoke. Yuta couldn't help but say, "Master, we can't keep going on like this, right?" Mahiru was clearly overwhelmed, even though they had helped her out as much as they could. This barely kept things running. But if it continued like this, Lin also fell silent. They definitely needed to come up with a logistical solution. But actually, it was quite simple. Train these girls into the strongest logistical core. After all, they were all low-class devils. They'd experienced hardship and weren't that delicate. Letting them manage logistics for now was the best short-term fix. The most urgent matter was finding a wide enough location to accommodate them all. Just as he was deep in thought, a message came from Psycho in the group chat. "Busujima Psycho, Master, I've found a military base in the zombie world. Judging by its size, it should be sufficient for the time being. Busujima Psycho, also, there's plenty of supplies here. Even if we stop restocking, it'll last us for a while. Busujima Psycho, I also ran into a few survivors while searching for the base. Busujima Psycho, image.jpg. Lin glanced at the message from Psycho and nodded slightly. Then he opened the image. In the photo, there was a high school girl with multicolored hair. Behind her stood a tall, dark-skinned woman carrying a sniper rifle. And a pink-haired girl. Lin raised an eyebrow. Minami Rika? As for the high school girls behind her, Lin wasn't too familiar. "Hi!" Shizuka suddenly exclaimed. "It's Rika." Upon hearing the name, Mahiru, Yuta, and the others exchanged glances. They all recognized the name. After all, their group had taken over her house at the train station in the zombie world. Thinking it over, Lynn sent a message. Sigma Man, that dark-skinned woman is Minami Rika. Bring them all to the military base. Since he'd taken over their home, it was only right to offer help now that they'd met. As for the 4 high school girls and the pink-haired girl, one more or one less didn't make much of a difference. Besides, they were all women. They could also help take care of the lowly devils. Zombie world. After receiving Lynn's message, Psycho looked toward Minami Rika and the others. It seems the master has agreed to take you in. Let's head to the military base. Oh? The master. Minami Rika slung her sniper rifle over her shoulder and smiled flirtatiously at Psycho. But deep down, her eyes were filled with fear. Rika understood all too well. Psycho was terrifying. She had personally witnessed Psycho slicing through all the zombies on the street with a flying slash and even cleaving a house in half. Was that something a human could do? But even though she still couldn't fully believe it, the sight was burned into her memory. Ha! She exhaled. Was it really the right decision to follow her? This master, just what kind of person was he to have such a monster under his command? The 4 JKs next to her weren't thinking that deeply. Yay! We get to live together. The girl with purple twintails jumped up happily. The brown-haired JK quickly grabbed her. Kurumi, keep it down. You'll attract zombies. But didn't Psycho already clear them all out? You're really calling her by name like you know her. The girls bantered playfully while the pink-haired one simply watched calmly. Soon, under Psycho's lead, the group arrived at the military base. It's huge. The JKs were stunned. It feels like we could live here forever. But we should clean up the inside first. Psycho drew her sword and slashed forward. She deliberately controlled her strength, making sure not to damage the base's infrastructure. No matter how many times I see it, it's unbelievable. Psycho, you're seriously a superhuman. Rika clicked her tongue and set up her sniper rifle. I'll do my part too. Not long after, the zombies in the military base were completely wiped out. Psycho didn't leave a single corner unchecked. Then, she placed the teleportation coordinate Lynn had given her in advance. A few moments later, a flash of light illuminated the military base. Lynn and Shizuka appeared together. They're here. Kurumi Ebisuzawa shouted. It's really teleportation magic. Rika was stunned as well. Her tone turned complex. Ever since the zombie outbreak, this world just keeps getting more and more incomprehensible. But just as she finished her thought, her eyes widened. A blonde giant waved enthusiastically and shouted, Rika! Long time no see. Zombie World Military Base. Lynn inspected the facilities and supplies around the base and nodded with satisfaction. For now, this military base alone is enough to accommodate all the cursed children in the Tokyo area. After temporarily setting up a new shelter here, Lynn saw Shizuka chatting with Rika, but he wasn't idle either. He began sorting through the gains from the reincarnation of over 4,000 devils. First, in terms of overall strength, his level hadn't changed. He was still a top-tier ultimate class devil. But Lynn felt the breakthrough to becoming a special devil wasn't far off. He estimated that with another 2,000 cursed children, he'd be able to ascend. In terms of abilities, all the skills were various gastria factors that had been integrated into the gastria factor. Apoptosis genome, incubating. Factor collection, acquired, mole factor, hedgehog factor. Factor fusion, dual factor integration. Factor assimilation, can parasitize other life forms and implant into the apoptosis genome, transforming them into puppets controlled by the host. Incomplete. Lynn narrowed his eyes. Apoptosis genome had awakened a new function. As he willed it, a black diamond-shaped crystal appeared in front of him. This is a spider-type factor. Lynn was mildly surprised. This apoptosis genome could now condense the factors he had collected and grant them to others. But anyone who received it would fall under his control. However, Lynn could also condense gastria-type factors that weren't bound to him. So that meant he could now create new humans who didn't carry the gastria virus, but still possessed gastria virus-like abilities? Lynn. Sounds a bit useless. But maybe it could be used as a tradable commodity in the future? A stable income source for the peerage? The only problem was, he hadn't decided what to trade for yet, or who to trade with. Still, it was better than nothing. Elsewhere, Shizuka had just finished her chat with Minami Rika. After hearing what Shizuka had gone through, Rika couldn't help but sigh. Sighing at the dumb luck of this airheaded woman. So, do ditzy girls never have bad luck? Becoming a devil, gaining supernatural power. Rika was slightly dazed. She had also learned the source of Psycho's power. So cool. Kurumi stared with glowing eyes and curiously asked, can we become devils too? Hearing this, Rika perked up as well. Devils, she wanted to be one too. Wait. If we become devils, doesn't that mean we'd have to join that guy's harem? Naoki Miki quickly covered Kurumi's mouth and glanced at Lynn secretly. Whatever she imagined made her face blush. Harem, this is way too chaotic. Rika had no such concerns. Adults made decisions based on benefits. Becoming Lynn's woman and servant? Honestly, it felt like a win-win. Not only would she gain supernatural strength, but she could leave this god-forsaken world. Besides, Lynn was completely her type. Also, in an apocalyptic world, how many men were even left? If she didn't follow Lynn now, would she go the rest of her life without a man? Sure, maybe she could find one eventually, but she'd been picky for almost 30 years. Joining Lynn's peerage? Totally worth it. Minami Rika didn't hesitate like Naoki Miki. She said directly, Shizuka, can you ask your master if he's still accepting maids? Huh? Shizuka blinked in confusion, then hugged Rika happily and rubbed her cheek against her face. That's great, Rika. We can be together again. Naoki Miki. She looked at Rika, stunned. Just like that? You're giving yourself away. Where's your dignity as a woman? Sakura Megami gently patted her on the head and smiled. Miki, it can't be helped. Even you, sensei. Miki. Sakura's expression turned serious. This is already the end of the world. Don't you want to stay alive with everyone? Of course I do. Naoki Miki blurted out, then fell silent. Right. Having this opportunity was a blessing. After all, it was the supernatural. And judging by Saiko and Shizuka, that master didn't seem bad? Alright, I get it. Naoki Miki decided to go with the flow. Hehe. Kurumi hugged her and whispered, it's okay, Miki. That means we can always live together. Hearing that, Naoki Miki smiled. That's right. At least they'd all survive. Together. No one even asked our opinion. Yuki Takeya and Wakazi Yuri voiced their complaints. Then, will Yuki and Yuri come with us? Kurumi reached out to them. Of course, X2. Wakazi Yuri replied calmly, it can't be helped. After all, it's the end of the world. Who would pass up a chance to survive? Saiko stood beside Lynn, smiling slightly. Looks like Master just casually harvested 6 more beauties. Devil hearing was naturally sharp. Lynn and Saiko heard their entire conversation clearly. Lynn simply shrugged. Fine. They were easy on the eyes anyway. Besides, he now had extra help to manage the devils from the Black Bullet world, right? One of them was even a teacher. Judging by her appearance, she seemed like the nurturing type. So, Lynn had 6 new additions to his peerage. Unfortunately, none of them reincarnated as special devils. Minami Rika gained the skill Firearms Mastery, allowing her to pick up and use any firearm instinctively, and even master it quickly. Her strength and endurance were also slowly increasing. As for the others, well, except Kurumi, the rest didn't show much talent. Even Kurumi only awakened an ability called Battle Endurance. Still, for logistics work, it was more than enough, and they seemed content. The 6 stood in place, completely unclothed. Aside from Rika, the others were visibly shy. They tried their best to cover themselves. Rika brushed back her purple hair and leaned in close to Lynn as she walked past. Master want to stay over tonight? There was a glint of mischief in her purple eyes, filled with seductive charm. She was a natural queen. Rika turned, pressed against Lynn, and whispered into his ear. Master, we'll have a good time. Rika fully understood a man's mentality. It was her edge. Feeling her soft body against his, Lynn paused to think. A dark-skinned queen, sounds like a fun new experience. Shizuka, wanna join us? Rika turned to invite Shizuka. Shizuka looked confused. Why did this feel like déjà vu? She looked at Saiko, then at Rika. Was she being pulled in again? Upstairs. I want you on the bed, Rika. Lie down. Yes, master, Rika answered quickly. She slumped into the bed, quivering with excitement. Her chest tightened under her full breasts, waiting for his instructions. Meanwhile, Shizuka stood still, feeling a little awkward. Shizuka, come here, Lynn called to her. With his arm stretched out, he pulled her close, tightening his grip on her as she came closer. She drew a deep breath. Lynn, with his eyes open in a stern gaze, reached for her cheeks. Heat rushed to her cheeks as his lips fell on hers. Feverish excitement lapped up her insides, and her own lips closed on in his with thuds. Rising from her gut, a sharp moan brushed out of her throat as Lynn palm flattened against her nipple. Acton. He rubbed her breast, and she felt his groin throb against her thigh. Master, she gasped, failing for breath. Quietly, he lifted his cock up, and guided her left hand to the tip, stroking it all the way down, letting her feel his bulging girth. She gasped, and gasped like a cornered puppy. Then finally, her palm opened, and she began to cradle his balls. Master! Rika called coquettishly from the bed. Don't forget me. Lynn turned toward the purple-haired, dark-skinned beauty on the bed. Turn over, I want to see you from the back. Watching her curvy body turn on the bed, made Lynn's dick rage harder. Her thighs slapped against the silk sheets. On her chest, her full breasts heaved upwards, falling back with glorious leaps. Rika got on all fours, ass in the air, legs apart, resting her weight on both her elbows. Shit, Lynn swallowed. This goes hard. Lynn quickly threw off his shirt, kicked off his pants, and crawled into bed. Shizuka, with a gawking look on her face, watched as Rika reached behind for his dick, cradling the tip in her fingers. It was fully erect now, thanks to her. Lynn took position behind her. Shizuka watched with perverse excitement as Lynn's neck arched forward, lowering his eyes towards Rika's big buttocks. In slow motion, Shizuka watched as he gently hoisted his abomination of a cock, lifting it towards Rika's clitoris. Tap tap tap. It was the sound of his cock beating gently against her clit. Both women held their breaths as he teased the outer walls of Rika's pussy. In slow circles, Lynn whirled it around the entrance, wetting the tip of his cock like a painter's brush in deep paint. HMPHHH acn. The high-pitched sounds of Rika's desperate moans filled the air. And it made Shizuka even more horny. So, she climbed right into bed with them. Unashamed, she reached around him, and cupped his balls in her right hand, massaging him affectionately. Shizuka's nipples stiffened on his back. Still massaging his balls, as she slowly gripped the base of his cock with her other hand, quietly guiding his dick right into Rika's hole. Shizuka observed jealously, thinking to herself. Rika really has a nice butt. Further stoking the fires of her jealousy, Lynn's arms rose upwards from his sides. He lifted them both, extending each hand to each respective cheek. So soft. He mumbled. He opened his palms, rubbing the length of soft flesh, groaning in deep pleasure as it bounced from his massage. Greedily, as he hummed to himself, his fingers curved inwards and his wide palms packed a huge lump and squeezed hungrily. In response to his touch, Rika swayed gently, breezing from side to side, edging him on with soft slippery moans. Meanwhile, Shizuka was still kneeling behind him. Arms reaching around him, she gripped the base of his cock in her small palms, tilting it downwards. In breathless whispers, she gently rocked him with her hips, leaning him forward, guiding his lubricated tip towards Rika's pussy. Feeling the pulsating bulge in her hands. Will Rika be able to take this? Do it. Rika encouraged her, masking the impatience in her voice. Shizuka blinked again, a shadow of determination streaked across her face. Her fingers tensed, and she clenched it in a firm grasp, jerking Lynn cock forward, plunging him right into Rika's pussy. Akhn! Rika's cry rang into the room. Sharp and loud, she screeched loudly like a banshee. Her upper body slumped, collapsing into the pile of pillows. Growling, Lynn fell forward on top of her. His balls dangled, and half of his dick bulged outside while the other half kept throbbing in her pink pussy. Thud! His chest landed on her back with a soft clap. Quickly, he reached around with his arm, sliding it in a sweeping arc towards her mouth. Before she could scream again, he clamped it shut. Shizuka watched the savage display and her body temperature skyrocketed. Hand still over her mouth, he slowly inched his waist backwards. And Shizuka nearly fainted from the sight. What in the? She gasped as her jaw dropped. MMMPHHHHH. Again, Rika's muffled cries bled into Lynn's hand. They began to move. Across the white sheets, Lynn's body heaved backwards, like an ivory serpent. Under him, Rika squirmed in the sheets. His rod tore through her butthole, sliding out of her tightness. Master Acton, her muffled voice echoed from her trembled body, Master. Shizuka, kneeling behind them, feasted her eyes on the savage love-making. Unaware of her hardening nipples, and mildly aware of the trickling moisture running between her thighs. Rika's movements began to pick up, rustling along the sheets in delicate, quick movements. The curve of her butt cheeks contracted, clenching. Lynn groaned. His hand slipped from her mouth. And her sound of her panting began to rise. Urgent, and evasive, her butt cheeks clapped. Her breasts, pressed against the bed, spilled out from the sides of the bed. She was also stimulating herself. As she fucked Lynn, as she slid his throbbing cock in and out of her tightening pussy, she also opened her legs wider, grounding her clitoris against the soft silk bed sheets. Her sturdy nipples grazed against the bed. Arghun, master. Rika's throat moaned in chaotic consistency. Shizuka, content with sloshing on his balls, breathed down his scrotum with hot breaths. For a stretch of time, Lynn did not move an inch. He let her fuck him. He let the Shizuka suck his balls. They moaned like they had been born to fuck him. So, he let them. His thoughts died out when he heard the wet slippery sound coming from behind him. Quietly, he leaned backwards and his dick throbbed from the sight. Shizuka was fingering herself. Laying upside down, mouth on his balls and 2 fingers swirling on her clit, the blonde girl's fluids tapped against her flapping fingers. Below him, with their heaving bodies hovering over her, Shizuka's eyes kept widening and widening. She watched Lynn's cock slide out of Rika's pussy with reckless abandon. She gulped, almost choking on him. A trickle of saliva slid down the corner of her left cheek. Streams of thoughts, bouts of uncertainties, and mind-blowing theories, they burned through her mind. These thoughts rode side by side with her horniness, making her even more horny. This dick, it belongs to a god. She quickly wiped the edges of her mouth. Her eye caught his bulging dick and she tensed. Yes, I need to do more, I need to. So, Shizuka pulled away from his balls. Jaws aching, she slid out from underneath him, rising to her knees, and kneeling once more at his back. Gently, from behind, she pulled him to her, lulling him away from the Rika. You're not ready for this, master, she thought. With that, she slipped her right hand under his groin, coveting his large balls. Lynn jerked as her fingers closed in. Moving her mouth to his ear, she moaned quietly as she tugged his balls, rolling his scrotum along each finger, massaging his full balls. Lynn's chest tightened. His muscles tensed. That's it. She whispered, come for me, please. Lynn swallowed hard. Please. She wailed softly, squishing his scrotum, come. Come now, please, master. Her voice was like stringed notes. It seeped right into his brain, tearing apart his restraint, shredding his inner walls. Damn it, she's gonna make me spill, he said to himself. Get your shit together, Lynn. You can't come now. Really, Lynn was having the time of his life. From his balls, to the length of his cock, every inch was tingling with electric sensations. The orgasm was promising. But he had to control it. It wasn't about showcasing his stamina. He simply wanted to build up enough cum to extend the orgasm. In front of him, the Rika's round ass kept bouncing on his dick. Each creamy thrust slid out of her pussy. Biting into the sheets, she withdrew her hips, choking his cock in circling motions, gripping him in tight squeezes. Again, Shizuka's voice, calm and soft, wafted into his ears. If you don't come, master, she tugged his balls, I'm going to make you come. Still stroking his balls, she let her left hand wander upwards, sliding up his abs, up to his chest, landing her forefinger on his nipple. Lynn's eyes flashed. His dick jerked, forcing Rika's hole open, triggering a rich howl from her. Shizuka's face, still gleaming, did it again. Her forefinger circled in, twirling it in firm slippery circles. She moaned as Lynn's waist jerked forward, trapping his scrotum in between her hands. Wait, what? Shizuka's eyebrows flared up in shock. Master, is he bigger? He was. The upper lids of her eyes twitched surreptitiously. She gasped and her breathing dropped. He groaned, about to come. Below him, with her fat ass cheeks clapping against his pelvis, Rika arched her head backwards, throwing her hair, and screamed. Lynn's breathing increased. Oh shit! He groaned. Rika continued to slam her buttocks against him. Aknakn. Mouth dangling open, leaning on her elbows, she heaved her slim waist back and forth across the bed. Her hair danced on her back and on the pillows. Each deep thrust with calculated efficiency. Face flushed with anticipation, she kept contracting her pussy in squeezes, trying to suck out the semen from his dick. That's it. Lynn whispered hoarsely, gripping her waist with both hands. That's it, I'm coming. YYSSSSMMM master RRR, she echoed through snatched breaths. Please come. Come inside me. Her razor-sharp screams cut through the room. And while her massive buttocks clapped noisily against his pelvis, Lynn's grip tightened on her waist. Hot breaths sputtered from his lips and mouth as his nails sank into the clear skin of her thighs. Controlling the tight squeezes, and with each long thrust echoing in slurp-slurp noises, Rika's pussy contracted and contracted in diabolic grips, clutching his throbbing rod, drawing out his cum. Rika jerked forward on the bed, throwing her ass frontwards. The unexpected jerk forced his dick to slide out of her pussy, all the way to the tip. She then caught it in one fluid motion. And in one split second, she clamped her walls shut, gripping his throbbing tip with a firm squeeze. Ah! Gasping exasperatedly, Rika threw back her ass, enveloping the entire bulge, twirling slightly as her fat ass swallowed his gleaming rod. Lynn's cock pulsed hard for a split second. His body tensed, his brows furrowed. And then, a heavy rush of semen came screaming through. He heaved backward with a quick pull, dragging out his veined dick, filling the air with the scent of fresh semen. Almost immediately he slammed back into her. Below him, head collapsed into the pillow, Rika moans echoed, yes master RR. Yes mast. Smack. 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 He swung his hips forward wildly, robbing the Rika of the last syllable. Hey. Instead, a violent scream erupted from her throat. Her face strained and her hips stiffened, holding up his ass in place to receive his deep thrusts. I'm going to fill you up. Yes, master. You want this? Yes SSS. Ogden. Shizuka, kneeling behind Lynn with her breasts bare and dripping milk, watched them both intently. Oh yes. Rika wailed, yes SSS. Her eyes widened as she felt Lynn's hot semen deep inside her, flooding her walls with each thrust. She felt every pulse, every throb, every drop as he slid in and out of her. Rika's eyes rolled back, lost in the overwhelming waves, her body clutched around him, instinctively moving in sync with his rhythm. PPP please master, fill me up more. She chaffed in between moans and buckled slightly. With her fat ass facing him, and her flipped body hurtling up and down the sheets, Rika began to orgasm. The hot fluid shot out of her pussy, forcing out a moans. The tip of her toes curled forward. Her thighs shook violently. She bit her lips. Thin voice shrieked uncontrollably, Akn. From the slippery, watery sounds, to the moist echoes of their colliding organs, down to her screams, Shizuka took it all in. Slowly, her heart rate rose higher and higher till she couldn't take it anymore. The ultra-horny blonde extended her right arm, reaching for his balls. Simultaneously, she reached around his torso with her other hand and found his left nipple. A sliver of satisfaction rippled through his body just as she began to rotate her forefinger on his nipple. His dick stiffened. Her palm unfolded underneath his balls, enveloping his right testicle in a soft grip. His dick stiffened again. Rika picked up the thrusts, fucking his cock in ass-twirling motions. Still teasing his nipples from behind, Shizuka continued to massage his balls, alternating between left and right, sloshing his ear with her moans. Lynn did nothing but let the women fuck, and tease him to completion. Yeah, was all he could say. Lynn's cock swelled, expanding in Rika's pussy. She gushed like a leaking faucet. Then she collapsed on the bed. Thick streams of hot semen sliced through Lynn's dick. His hips thrust forward as Shizuka gripped his balls in a firm but soft grasp. The blonde girl breathed into his ear as she found the intersection between both balls, tugging them with calculated firmness, sending her soft moans directly into his ears. A lump rose and fell in Shizuka's throat. She worked his scrotum diligently, massaging like she wanted to squeeze out every bit of cum in his balls. I need to drain him. Shizuka plotted to herself, working her fingers fast. Her brain started to melt, heart-shaped pupils forming in her eyes. Lynn suddenly jerked backwards, pulling out Rika in one fluid move. Grunting impatiently, he grabbed Shizuka's thighs, and flipped her over. Seeing Lynn flip her over, Shizuka then proceeded to open her legs even wider. Put it in, now. Lynn pretended like he didn't hear her. Please master, she moaned, do it. Leaning in, Lynn brought his mouth to her supple breasts. Shizuka's misty eyes flared open when Lynn's mouth landed on her nipple. Both her knees, raised and parted with Lynn between them, buckled slightly. He slid his tongue in moist circles, teasing with slobbery motions before taking a deep suck, feasting on her milk. Master, she moaned, masked. Her head fell backwards. Her thin lips parted. And a low squeal rasped out of her throat. Eyes closed shut, her palms slid upwards, traveling the length of his back. She found the back of his head, snaked her fingers through his hair, and with a soft moan, she pressed him in. As she forced him deeper into her breasts, the tip of his firm tongue flattened against her hard nipple, sucking on it like a breastfeeding child. Her hips jerked upward. Please master, she begged, do it now. Lynn then arched his waist backwards, propping his cock against her clit. Grabbing her other tit, he gave it a firm squeeze, forcing warm milk to bead and drip from the nipple before leaning in to suck it greedily. Master. Put it in. Please, she moaned, how much longer do I have to beg? Lynn then thrusted his hips forward, forcing the tip in. Shizuka's chest rose with a wicked arc. Her breath sliced out of her windpipe, alternating between gasps and bated breaths. Her blonde hair thrashing, lips quivering, and knees buckling, she began to pant under him. Both her hands suddenly flung in the air, throwing her arms around him, pulling his tense body towards her. Deeper. She moaned, deeper master, deeper. Again, his hips moved against her body. His right hand slipped beneath her right thigh. Feeling his touch, Shizuka heaved her ass up, lifting to give him room. The angle of penetration shifted and it sent his dick sliding deeper. Her chest swelled, raising her dripping breasts up. Lynn kept sliding against her sweet spot. And at once, he felt her body go limp. For a moment, not a single sound came from her. Both her hands gripped his shoulders. Her chest ascended, her neck arched and her long hair fell backwards. For a second, her body stiffened, her toes curled. Then, the wail came. Through her wailing, her pussy walls tightened. It gripped his cock, clutching his tip in a death squeeze. Lynn's eyes flashed. and he came crashing down on her. The angle of his penetration tilted, triggering a deeper plunge. Her hips squirmed slightly underneath his groin, and their organs clashed in slippery thuds colliding in a pool of wetness. Faster! She whispered, faster! Her lashes fluttered up and down. In her eyes, a savage energy burned through. Her stiffness gradually began to wane. Yeah, she gripped his shoulders tightly, spreading her legs, oh yeah fuck yes. His dick sliced through her vagina, sinking in and out of her wetness. Master! She moaned, Moss! They both groaned together. The bed squeaked under their movements. Their naked bodies heaved up and down, soaked sheets, panting, and groaning. With Rika passed out, the space was cramped. Movements was limited. But neither of them cared. With glowing eyes, Shizuka arched her head back, gripped Lynn's chest tighter, surrendering to the fluid strokes. In turn her pussy clenched. You're phenomenal, Shizuka, Lynn gasped, grabbing her tits. He squeezed her right breast, growling as her pussy clenched in turn. He picked up the pace again. Squealing, she heaved up and down the sheets. Her full, milky boobs dangled wildly with each thrust. Lynn gripped both of them, squeezing them into all shapes, swinging his waist in deep savage thrusts. He grunted, yeah, spread them, spread those legs. Faster, she whispered, faster, master, faster, go faster. Matching her grunts, he fucked her sweet spots. His bulging cock raged through her pink folds. Yeah, her lips sputtered, yes, like that, master. Her hair whipped wildly around her face as her breasts bounced in every direction, west, east, north, and south, spraying milk with each motion. Both her eyes rolled back in their sockets. The bed bounced rhythmically, bouncing in deference to their heaving bodies. The crunching whine of the creaking frame continued to echo in steady progressions. Her fucked her as she jerked her hips up. And then slammed her back into the bed again. Suddenly, his cock started to swell inside her. Lynn's eyebrows arched. It's coming. He announced, I'm coming. In response, Shizuka heaved her legs up, wrapping her thick thighs around his waist, keeping him trapped inside of her. Burst of semen came blasting out, slamming right into Shizuka's walls. From his scrotum, through his shaft, right up to the tip, the electrifying orgasm came gushing out. His semen came out like never before. Thrusting his orgasm into her, he kept fucking with reckless abandon. He didn't notice when her legs dropped. Under her waist, his hands remained tightly closed in on her thighs, wheezing as he climaxed in her. He then collapsed onto her body. Yeah, that was amazing, I'd better get off, he muttered. Sliding off the bed, he glanced at both Shizuka and Rika, who weren't moving, clearly they had fallen asleep. His throat feeling a little parched, he went down to get some drinks. The next day. Early morning. Lynn pushed away two pairs of delicate hands and stepped forward. Rika was woken up by Lynn's movements and wrapped her arms around his neck, her narrow eyes still slightly dazed. She murmured, Master, aren't you going to rest a bit longer? Lynn patted her head. Rika was stunned and subconsciously started to slide down. Lynn, speechless, pulled her back up. Rika blinked in surprise and looked at Lynn strangely. Master, don't you need it? Lynn stayed quiet for a moment, then loosened his grip slightly. Let's handle business first. Rika smiled secretly, then sat up and waited for Lynn's instructions. The quilt slipped off her shoulders, revealing her exquisite figure. Lynn raised his index finger, and a purple-black diamond-like crystal appeared at its tip. Rika was momentarily stunned and hesitated. What is this? Protogastria species. Lynn didn't bother explaining what the protogastria were. He simply said, this crystal will allow you to acquire the eagle factor, it should be a good fit for you. He hadn't expected that the new ability he obtained from the apoptosis genome yesterday would be usable so soon. It had been a spontaneous idea that struck him. For ordinary devils like them, Lynn could provide suitable protogastria species. Of course. Lynn wasn't planning to control them. After all, they were all his peerage members. Eagle. Rika's eyes lit up. Lynn said, the ability this eagle-type factor provides is Eagle Eye. It suits your sniper skills perfectly. He had collected many eagle-type factors. Even if the base animal was the same, each factor granted a different ability. Eagle Eye, however, was especially suitable for Rika. Master. Rika's eyes grew hazy as she subconsciously licked her lips. She suddenly felt the urge to thoroughly serve her master inside and out. Seeing her lost in some kind of fantasy, Lynn directly embedded the protogastria seed into her body. Rika's breathing quickened as a mysterious power surged through her. Her purple eyes seemed to clear up, revealing layers of mist being peeled away. After a while, the sensation gradually faded. Rika's pupils contracted as she looked outside the window. She murmured, I can see farther now, and my dynamic vision's been significantly enhanced. She could now catch subtle details that had previously escaped her. Seeing this, Lynn had her turn around. After updating her blessing, Lynn carefully checked her stat information. Minami Rika. Level, low-class devil. Race, devil. Peerage Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Endurance, I2. Magic, I0. Innate skills. Firearms proficiency. Expert in firearms. Gradual strength and endurance growth. Protogastria factor, Eagle. Eagle Eye, enhanced farsight and dynamic visual tracking. Dash. Sure enough, the skill Protogastria factor, Eagle had been added. Lynn wasn't surprised. Then he handed her the updated blessing. Rika accepted it. Upon seeing her new skill, she was thrilled. Yesterday, she'd felt a little disappointed in her lackluster growth. Today, her master had rewarded her. Rika set aside her blessing and then slipped back under the covers. Slurp slurp slurp. Lynn exhaled softly. To his right, Shizuka was still sleeping peacefully. 2 hours later. Naoki Miki and the others looked at Lynn, Rika and Shizuka with complicated expressions. Three people. It actually happened. Psycho was already used to it. Sometimes, she was even one of the participants in these incidents. When Lynn noticed them, he said plainly, "Take off all your clothes." Ha. His words instantly caused chaos. Is it our turn now? Even the usually calm Wakaza Yuri was visibly shaken. Naoki Miki stammered, "Here? Right here." Sakura's body trembled slightly, her face heating up as though she was about to faint. "Lynn. I'm just giving you all a permanent buff." Rika had just taken care of him, so Lynn wasn't exactly in the mood for anything else at the moment. "Oh. So that's what you meant." After Lynn's explanation, they all breathed a sigh of relief. But there was still an odd atmosphere between them. They exchanged glances, strange emotions flickering in their eyes. Living together really did mean living together. Dash. After they undressed, Lynn began implanting the Protogastria species into them one by one. Amazing! Kurumi excitedly tested out her new ability. Although her awakened innate skill was more like a buff-type ability. Still, who would ever complain about having too many skills? Since she preferred close combat with a shovel, Lynn gave her the Rhinoceros beetle Protogastria species. Upon fusion, it became Protogastria factor, Rhinoceros beetle. Power arm, can raise power transmission efficiency to 98%. Yuki received the Red Fox Protogastria species. Protogastria factor, Red Fox. Geomagnetic perception, can perceive surroundings through geomagnetic fields. Wakaza Yuri received Protogastria factor, Sloth. Metabolic rationality. Sakura got Protogastria factor, Mongoose. Progressive learning. Naoki Miki received Protogastria factor, Antelope. Environmental adaptation. After updating their blessings, the girls were overjoyed with their new powers and brimming with renewed confidence. Seeing this, Lynn left them alone and headed to the center of the military base. He released his magic, covering the entire base. A buzzing sound echoed. All the zombies and bloodstains within the base were completely wiped out. The magic had thoroughly cleansed the area. This was one of Lynn's commonly used spells, very handy. The other most used ones were healing and teleportation magic. He wondered if there was a magic that could auto-cook meals. That way, he could prepare food for the cursed children's. As for himself, he still preferred to eat Mahiru's cooking. After tidying up the military base, Lynn activated the teleportation gate. The transfer plan had begun. Sakura stood nervously, staring in the direction of the gate. Lynn had already explained everything to her. All the girls coming through were about 10 years old and had never received proper education. So, that responsibility was left entirely to her. The pressure was intense. Lynn also mentioned Mahiru in the group. One after another, their figures appeared from the gate. Leading the group was Kyo Senju, the dolphin factor holder. Wow! This really is a different world. The cursed children looked around the new world with curious eyes, but none of them made any unnecessary movements. They all stood quietly in place, waiting for Lynn's instructions. Seeing this, Sakura, who had been entrusted with an important responsibility, breathed a quiet sigh of relief and patted her chest. It seemed that these children were fairly well behaved. But still, wasn't this a bit too many? Sakura began to worry. Could she really take care of all these children on her own? Don't worry, Sakura-sensei, we'll help. Wakaza Yuri patted her comfortingly on the shoulder. After giving the cursed children a basic rundown of the current situation in the zombie world, Lynn handed them over to Sakura. Of course, with Kyo Senju managing things, it shouldn't be a problem. Kyo. Hearing her name, Kyo Senju froze for a moment, then slowly raised her head. Master Lynn, what is it? Lynn took out the 360 ways to use magic that Rias had given him earlier and handed it to her. He gently patted her head. Your task is to master the contents of this book as soon as possible and then teach it to all the other devils. As the dolphin factor holder, Ko Senjo had an exceptionally quick mind and learned fast. That's why Lynn assigned her this responsibility. Since she was now a devil, she should start learning the knowledge devils needed. I'll do my best. Ko Senjo nodded seriously, then suddenly looked up at Lynn and asked, "Will Master Lynn come visit us again?" Lynn paused for a second, then smiled. "Of course." He ruffled her hair. "It won't be long before you can return to your original world anytime you want." Yet, this time, her voice was a little louder. After she left, Lynn watched her departing figure, briefly dazed. Then, turning back, he stepped into the teleportation gate. The first step is to take control of the Tokyo area. Black Bullet World. Lynn had intentionally left the first batch of cursed children who had been reincarnated as devils behind. They had valuable experience when it came to dealing with other cursed children. They would be needed again soon. The first thing Lynn did upon returning to the Black Bullet World was issue a new mission. The cursed children still within the city would be handled by Kisara. As for the first batch of devils, start spreading out to the outer areas and bring back the cursed children. Led by Midori Fuse, the cursed children were more excited than anyone else. They were enthusiastic about saving the other cursed children. At the same time, news of the IISO incident in the Qigong district's outer area began to spread. Tendo family's new residence. Tendo Kikunoja furrowed his brows after hearing about it. Anything unusual in the district? A servant reported, the only notable change is the newly established shelter. According to recent observations, they seem to be taking in a large number of cursed children. The IISO incident is likely connected to them. Tendo Kikunoja's brows furrowed deeper. He hadn't forgotten that the explosives he'd prepared had ended up blowing up his own house instead. That shelter was abnormal. And a glint of cold light flashed in his aged eyes. What gives those monsters the right to be saved? Send someone to guide the public to visit the shelter. Yes, sir. Tendo Kikunoja was using his usual method. Manipulate public opinion and use the masses. A few days later, the shelter took in another group of cursed children. After reincarnating the final one, Lin felt his strength surge once more. He clenched his fist. Boom! A thunderous crack sounded in the air. Huff! He exhaled slowly. Every time his power increased, he felt joy from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, noisy voices drifted into his ears. Get out of here, cursed children! Why should we take in monsters like them? They're all devils. They should go back to hell. Listening to the commotion, Lin frowned slightly. Mr. Lin. Mahiru walked over, a chill flickering in her gaze. Some people have gathered outside the shelter to pressure us into expelling the cursed children. Hearing this, the children inside lowered their heads. They had only just been reincarnated as devils. But they hadn't yet shed the stigma of being cursed children. Oh! Lin smiled faintly. So someone finally couldn't sit still. Then he turned to the cursed children. Lift your heads. The children looked up, eyes filled with fear and confusion. Remember, you are no longer cursed children. Lin spread his arms wide and declared. You are now devils. Devils. The cursed children were stunned. They remembered the reincarnation ceremony from earlier. And the devil marks that now resided on their backs. Lin curled his lips. Devils should act like devils. Go do what devils should do. Do what devils should do? Psycho. Yes, master. Psycho licked her lips, excitement flashing in her eyes. It's been a long time since I've cut anyone down. Outside the shelter. A crowd of people stood holding signs that read, Cursed children, get out. Their slogans were loud and righteous. Cursed children don't deserve special treatment. Kick out the monsters. Get out. Get out. Swish. Amid the shouting, the doors of the shelter finally opened. Psycho stepped out, sword in hand, her eyes full of bloodlust. The protesters didn't notice. Seeing the shelter residents walk out, they instantly acted like they had won. Chins lifted high, they sneered down their noses at the group. Hey! So you're the ones hiding those monsters? You think you're so noble? Those devil children should be rotting in the outer area. Get them out of here now. Cursed children out. 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 Their arrogance filled the air, like they spoke for all humanity. Psycho sneered and slowly drew the blade at her waist. Ha! What, you gonna fight us now? You must be insane. You're seriously pulling a sword on regular people? All for some cursed kids? Looks like you're not good people either. The crowd kept shouting, completely unfazed by Psycho's movements. They didn't believe she'd actually do anything. After all, they were the righteous ones. They stood for justice. Their eyes gleamed with confidence. Heh! You're all so noisy. Psycho's eyes turned blood red, her bloodlust peaking. She raised her sword and slashed. Swish! A flash of silver light tore through the air. Splurt! The crowd froze in shock as blood sprayed from their waists. Warm droplets splashed on nearby faces. The sharp scent of blood spread instantly. Silence. The air turned deathly still. The protesters stood there, stunned. Until one trembling voice finally cried out. She killed someone. And just like that, the illusion shattered. All the so-called courage in their eyes vanished. Only fear remained. When the butcher's blade was truly raised, their true selves were exposed. Psycho grinned coldly. This is what a devil should look like. Behind her, the cursed children's eyes lit up with a new fire. What a devil should look like. The sentence echoed in the hearts of the cursed children. They wanted to act. But there was still hesitation. After all, they had once lived as humans. Even if their lives had been harsh, when it came to taking someone's life, they still felt conflicted. Ah! That guy, it's him! One cursed child suddenly cried out, pointing at a man among the protesters. A year ago, he beat Sumi to death. Her eyes were filled with tears, the whites bloodshot. She would never forget that day. They'd gone into the city to beg, just her and Sumi, and were lured into a remote alley. She really wanted to protect me. Her voice trembled, her teeth clenched with hate. And that one. She beat me up when I came into the city. More stories spilled from the cursed children's mouths, and in an instant, it became a session of accusations. And only then did they realize none of the protesters in front of them were innocent. Kill! Kill them! The cursed children's eyes turned cold. All traces of mercy vanished. Whoosh! Demonic wings unfurled as the army of cursed children launched forward in unison. Midori Fuse led the charge. Not out of personal hatred. But because. Disgusting trash, how dare you let Lord Lynn hear your filthy voices? As if putting them on trial, Midori's gaze cut sharper than any blade. Ah! Monsters! Devils! When the protesters saw the cursed children flying toward them with wings spread, panic swept through the crowd. The cursed children had evolved. They'd become devils. And Psycho's earlier slaughter had already shattered any illusion of security they had. Run! Run! One panicked shout broke the silence, and the crowd scattered in terror. The cursed children had finally fought back. No more enduring beatings, insults, and slurs. No more submitting to blades raised against them. Now they raised their own. The protesters scrambled in fear. Don't come near me, you monsters! But how could ordinary humans outrun devils? Swish! A deep red line split across a man's throat. The cursed child who had killed him froze. She had just taken a life. But strangely, she felt joy. It felt like her whole body had been set free. All those years of pent-up emotions, released in an instant. Kill. They had to let it out. All the pain, sorrow, and torment. Let it all go. Swish. Blood splattered across the streets. No. Please don't kill me. I was wrong. I won't ever call you monsters again. I'll vote for the cursed children's human rights bill. Please, spare me. Thud. The man begging on his knees fell to the ground, lifeless. The cursed child standing over him remained expressionless. She showed no mercy. He wasn't apologizing because he understood. He was just afraid, because he knew he was going to die. Massacre. A real massacre. The cursed children soared through the air, not sparing a single soul. Psycho sheathed her sword. She merely watched in silence as the cursed children cut down the humans. If she wanted, there wouldn't have been a single survivor left after her first strike. But this wasn't her battle. This was for them. Not just to vent years of pain and resentment, but to make them understand who they were now. To make them accept their identities as devils. To show them the roles of hunter and hunted had reversed. Dash. After some time, blood flowed like rivers through Akayaka district. Not one person remained alive. The cursed children hovered in the air, stunned. But the heavy cloud in their hearts was gone. So this was the truth. The people who used to oppress them were this pathetic. They kneel. Beg for mercy. Cry out in fear. Sumi-chan, I've avenged you. One cursed child murmured softly, tears in her eyes. Even the others wept quietly. Years of anguish. Gone in this single moment. From now on, they were no longer cursed children. They would no longer be trampled on. They were devils. Devils who would fight for Master Lin alone. Their new lives began here. Psycho suppressed her bloodlust and silently enjoyed the brutal yet cathartic slaughter brought on by the cursed children. She let out a slow breath, her twitching hands finally relaxing. What's the status? She turned toward Yuuko, who was floating in the air. Yuuko held her phone up and gave a thumbs up. Complete 360-degree high-definition coverage. Not a single blind spot. Perfect. Psycho smiled coldly. Nothing was more important than fulfilling her master's orders. Yuako uploaded the video to the group chat and tagged Seitenshi. Seitenshi. Seitenshi's face went pale. Had Lin finally taken action against humanity? But, after reading the full account in the chat, she fell silent. Why? Why provoke devils? Seitenshi slowly closed her eyes. She had tried to save these people. But in return, humanity had chosen to push themselves into hell. Ha! She took several deep breaths. And when she opened her eyes again, all emotion was gone. In its place, a coldness she didn't even realize had taken root. She murmured under her breath, ignorant people, must be purged. Just then, another message appeared in the chat. Sword Ghost, haha. Well done. I've been fed up with those humans for a long time. Sigma Man, Seitenshi, there's definitely someone manipulating this from the shadows. Do you have any leads? Seitenshi opened her mouth, then stopped. She began recalling carefully. Every time the people staged these protests, there was always someone pulling the strings. But there were too many high-ranking officials involved. She couldn't pinpoint who was behind this particular event. In the end, all she could do was sigh. Seitenshi, I'm sorry, Lord Lin. Seitenshi, I only know the higher UPS were involved, but I don't know exactly who it was. Kashumajayaka Yuta, you really are the abandoned emperor. Seeing that name, Seitenshi pursed her lips. Abandoned emperor. It fit her perfectly. Even she had come to accept it. Sigma Man, in that case, we'll just kill them all. Seitenshi's heart clenched. She pressed her hand to her phone screen, wanting to type something. But then, she let her hand fall. Lin had already given humanity a chance. She slowly closed her eyes again. And when she opened them, they were colder than before. The corrupt, filthy upper class, must be cleansed. Sword Ghost, he. Are we finally making a move on them? Sword Ghost, Lord Lin, can I have those bastards from the Tendo family? Tendo Civil Security Corporation. Kisara's eyes darkened as she unconsciously licked the corner of her lips. Sigma Man, I'll leave it to you. Huff. With Lin's approval, Kisara's breathing became heavy and rapid. Tendo Kikunoju. Are you ready to go to hell? Akayaka District, shelter. Lin rubbed his chin, thinking about his next move. After the slaughter of the protesters, conflict with the humans of Tokyo had become inevitable. But, it's about time. Lin's eyes turned cold. In the beginning, the cursed children were difficult to accommodate due to a lack of manpower within the peerage. So he had slowed his plans. But now, with nearly 7,000 devils mobilized, they could sweep across the entire Tokyo region. Even with the need for teleportation, it was still time-consuming and exhausting. I wonder how the cursed children in the zombie world are progressing. With that in mind, he opened the chat group. Sigma Man at Dolphin Girl, how's the learning going? When the cursed children had been transferred to the zombie world, Lin had deliberately left them a thick black book. 360 ways to use magic. He specifically instructed them to focus on mastering teleportation magic first. It was essential for the future relocation of cursed children. And for the current situation. It had been a few days now. He wasn't sure how far they had progressed. After all, teleportation magic was a fairly advanced technique. Even Mahiru and the others only had a vague understanding of it. Only Yuta, with her archivist devil abilities, had fully mastered the magic through recorded data. Dolphin Girl, in response to Lord Lin's request, most are struggling to learn it. Lin wasn't surprised when he saw this. But that meant mass relocation would have to rely on manual transport again. And that would increase the chance of unforeseen issues. Just then, another message popped up. Dolphin Girl, but I seem to find it easy to learn, maybe it's related to my dolphin factor. Dolphin Girl, so I gathered companions with similar abilities and focused on learning together. Dolphin Girl, right now, we already have around 100 members who've successfully mastered teleportation magic. Lin's eyes lit up as he read the message. He hadn't expected the dolphin factor to provide a bonus to magic learning. Nor had he expected Ko Senja to be this sharp. She organized a study group based on individual traits and brought together those with similar learning ability. Brilliant. Good job, Ko. Sigma Man, excellent work, Ko. With over 100 cursed children capable of casting teleportation magic. Each one could lead a squad, enough to manage the entire Tokyo region's cursed children. This confirmed it, training the first batch to lead the next generation had been the right call. Dolphin Girl, I'm happy I could help Master Lin. Zombie World. Ko Senja stared at her phone screen, expressionless, but her lips moved ever so slightly. Finally. I can do something for Master Lin. Elsewhere. Midori Fuse watched the interaction between Lin and Ko and subconsciously bit her lip. She wanted to help Lin too. But she wasn't as smart as Ko. In the chat group. Lynn issued a new mission. Sigma Man, in that case, the plan to gather the cursed children across Tokyo begins now. Sigma Man, while you're at it, clear out any humans remaining in the Tokyo area. Kazumajayaka Yuta, so the days finally come? Busujima Psycho, hehe. I wonder if chopping people earns me experience? Though probably not. Angel Devil, I will follow Mr. Lin. Master Lin's exclusive cat, me too. I'll work hard. With Lin's command issued, the group responded quickly. But one person didn't seem so eager. Sidenshi. Holy Residence. She looked conflicted. But soon, her expression hardened. Sidenshi, Lord Lin, please leave the task of purging the humans, to me. Sigma Man? Kazumajayaka Yuta? Busujima Psycho? Maiko? Sword Ghost, who are you and what did you do to the real Sidenshi? Her words sent ripples through the chat, like a stone thrown into a still lake. Even Lin was caught off guard. Is this really Sidenshi? After thinking a moment, Lin replied. Sigma Man, what do you plan to do? Sidenshi pursed her lips. Sidenshi, once Lord Lin has taken in all the cursed children in Tokyo. Sidenshi, I will use the legacy of the 7 stars to summon a stage V Gastria. After sending that message, she felt like all the strength had left her body. She never imagined she'd one day be the one to plan humanity's extermination. Sigma Man, who? Lin's gaze flickered with amusement. Sigma Man, are you sure? He hadn't expected Sidenshi to go this far. Sidenshi, please, Lord Lin. Sidenshi, just this once, leave it to me. Sidenshi, I want to see what happens when humanity, without the cursed children to protect them, faces a world-ending Gastria. Sidenshi, what will they do? Sidenshi's expression was firm. This was the final chance. Maybe, when facing catastrophe, humanity would unite. And show a glimmer of their former glory. Maybe it would be enough to change Mr. Lin's mind. Of course. If humans still proved themselves worthless. Sidenshi, humans infected by the Gastria virus will also mutate into Gastria. Sidenshi, at that point, they'll become EXP for the peerage's level UPS. Sword Ghost. Sword Ghost, I didn't expect you to be this ruthless. Kisara's expression turned complicated. Who would have thought? The supreme ruler of the Tokyo area, humanity's last beacon of hope, and an idealist who preached coexistence between humans and cursed children. Could be this ruthless when it came to wiping out humanity. She was squeezing every last bit of use out of them. Lin also saw the hidden intent behind Sidenshi's actions. But the humans of this world will never fail to disappoint. Sigma Man, very well, I approve. Seeing Lin's response, Sidenshi let out a long sigh of relief. Hopefully. Humans wouldn't disappoint her. Otherwise, they would become Gastria. Sigma Man, before that, the cursed children accommodation plan, begins now. The moment he said that, a surge of light filled the shelter. The gate to the zombie world fully opened. The cursed children, now devils, were ready for battle. More than 7,000 cursed children flew across the entire Tokyo area, dispersing to search for other cursed children. Inside the shelter, Maiko came to Lin to renew her blessing. She was also prepared to contribute, but before that, she wanted to level up. Recently, she had been actively hunting cursed spirits in the main world whenever she had time to gain experience. Low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Strength, S999. Agility, S999. Durability, S999. Magic, S999. Inherent skills. Yin-Yang Eyes, omitted. Spirit Seer Devil, omitted. No wonder you're ready to level up, Maiko. Lin gently patted her back and updated her blessing. All attributes were already maxed at S999. If not for Psycho's yearning for killing ability, which allowed stats to break past the limits, Maiko's ability values would have already hit their ceiling. However, thanks to the Spirit Seer Devil's soul-devouring capability, she was able to push her stats to the top before leveling up. Maiko let out a sigh of relief seeing her completed stats. In truth, she had been ready to level up for some time but waited until her stats were fully maxed. Mid-class Devil. Race, Devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Yin-Yang Eyes. Spirit Vision increases the speed of magic growth. Spirit Seer Devil. Spirit Targeting enhanced damage to spirit-type beings. Spirit Control forcefully manipulates spirits. Spirit Devouring. Devil Transformation closely linked with Spirit Devouring. Upon transformation, all latent spirit energy is released. Development Ability. Soul Soothing exerts a deterrent effect on spirit creatures via Yin-Yang Eyes. Not bad. That development ability suits you perfectly. Lin copied the updated blessing and handed it to Maiko. She got dressed and reviewed the details. Mid-class devil. She had finally caught up with Yuta-senpai. Maiko clenched her fist and felt the power surging through her body. Ha! Mid-class devil. She never imagined she'd feel this much stronger than before. Soul-soothing. Her amber eyes shimmered slightly. Yin-yang eyes, it really did evolve. Watching Maiko complete her upgrade, Mahiru showed a hint of frustration in her eyes. Falling behind again. But she had only met Lynn a little later than the others. Her stats were nearly maxed out and she was already on the verge of leveling up. She just needed to grind a little longer. Ha, how nice. I wonder when I'll get to level up. Yuako floated midair, tapping her finger against her lips. Seeing that, Lynn recalled Seitenshi's plan. Once it was executed, the Tokyo area would be flooded with Gastria. It would be a monster feast. Even stage 4 Gastria could appear. Psycho and the others would certainly gain more than enough experience to level up. Psycho might even reach high-class devil in one go. After the upgrades were done, Maiko and the others also headed to the Tokyo area to bring back scattered cursed children. Tokyo. In a somewhat bustling shopping mall. A white-haired girl with ragged clothes and a bandaged face stood silently near the glass railing. A wooden sign hung from her neck, and a chipped ceramic bowl sat at her feet. I am a cursed child from the outer area. People passing by glanced at the sign and cast disgusted looks her way. But since there were too many security cameras around, they merely scoffed, muttered insults, and walked away. The white-haired girl didn't react. She just opened her mouth slightly, and a soft, sweet melody flowed from her throat and echoed through the corridor. Ding-gling. Suddenly, a crisp sound rang from the ceramic bowl. Ah! Thank you. The white-haired girl lit up with joy, but when she bent down and reached for the bowl, it was just a kintab. Her expression dimmed. Haha. Still falling for that. Two young men passed by, laughing as they wrapped their arms around each other. You never learn. It's funny though, right? I do this every time I visit. Haha. Stupid cursed child. Just die already. Like anyone would want to keep them around. Clearly, this wasn't their first time harassing her. The white-haired girl forced down her emotions and kept singing, hoping someone would listen. But judging by the empty bowl, her hope was in vain. Just then, Psycho entered the mall. She glanced at the two young men and instinctively licked her lips. Although Lynn had left the task of wiping out humanity to the Seitenshi, he had told them. For now, they could do as they pleased. So, killing a few humans wouldn't matter, right? After all, it was hard to suppress that urge when faced with scum like this. Swish! Psycho drew her sword. A flash of light, and the two young men were sliced clean in half. Blood splattered across the corridor. Ah! The blind white-haired girl froze, startled. Is it, a Gastria? Tap. A hand gently landed on her head. Psycho knelt beside her and spoke softly. Little one, want to come with me? The white-haired girl panicked a little. Me. Psycho thought for a moment, then rephrased. Will you become my initiator? The girl exclaimed in disbelief and nervously asked, even like this, is that okay? She couldn't understand why anyone would choose someone like her. She couldn't even see. Scenes like this played out all across Tokyo. The cursed children acted freely, striking down humans at the slightest provocation. They showed no restraint. Ah! The cursed children are attacking humans, They're attacking people. I told you, they're monsters. Should have been eliminated long ago. Thud. The man's head hit the ground before he could finish his sentence. A cursed child flapped her wings and flew off in another direction. His words were just too disgusting to bear. Dash. Seitenshi stood before the French window, gazing down at the chaos of Tokyo. There was no sorrow on her face. Only a sense of liberation. Whatever happens to humanity, doesn't matter anymore. Meanwhile, Tendo residence. Tendo Kikunojo's brows remained furrowed upon learning of the unrest in Tokyo. The cursed children, have they gone mad? Daring to rise against humanity? As expected, we can't trust these monsters. Tap tap. Suddenly, the sound of crisp footsteps echoed in the corridor. Tendo Kikunojo looked up, surprise flashing in his eyes. An unexpected guest had stepped into the Tendo residence once more. Kikunojo sat silently on the tatame, staring at the approaching figure. After a long pause, he finally spoke in a deep voice, I didn't expect you to return. Kisara grinned, a terrifying gleam flickering in her eyes as her hand rested on the hilt of her blade. Old dog, you never thought this day would come, did you? Kikunojo remained composed, sitting upright as he calmly responded, it seems your time away from the Tendo family has given you some courage. Her sudden return was unexpected. But he wasn't afraid of Kisara in the slightest. After all, she was just a child who hadn't matured. Still so arrogant. Clang. Her demon blade was unsheathed, a cold glint flashing across the room, reflecting Kisara's twisted expression in its steel. Die! Tendo Kikunojo immediately held his blade in front of him. Though his eyes were clouded with age, a fierce glint surged within them. He stood up abruptly, drawing his own blade. Kisara, don't forget you're still using the Tendo family's swordsmanship. Het! Kisara sneered. A black flame suddenly erupted across her body. Sword Ghost. Shura Devil Mode. Revenge Devil activated. Her pupils shimmered with blood. There was no need for declaration. Standing before her now was an enemy. The Queen of Revenge target locked. Special attack against designated enemies activated. Buzz. The air trembled violently. Kisara burst forward, moving at blinding speed as if she'd entered overspeed mode. In a flash, she was already in front of Tendo Kikunojo, and the demon blade snow shadow slashed upward from below. Tendo Kikunojo's pupils contracted. The blade in his hand shattered on contact. The air around them seemed to split apart in a clean line. In the next instant, Kisara stood behind him. She stared down at the tiny drops of blood on her blade, her eyes flashing with sadistic satisfaction. Tendo Kikunojo's eyes widened. His lips trembled. Pfft! A fountain of blood exploded, staining the wall red. How is this possible? His eyes were filled with disbelief as his body collapsed with a thud. Even in death, his eyes remained wide open. Het! Kisara sneered. It felt good. But not enough. Not enough. Swish! She stepped out of the room, blade in hand, walking toward the rest of the Tendo family. Everyone she encountered was cut down without hesitation. The Tendo household was soon filled with screams. Kisara! I'm your brother. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Kisara! Please! Spare me! Slash! Kisara's expression remained blank as she ended another life. Huff! Walking out of the Tendo family gate, Kisara exhaled deeply. The Tendo family. Annihilated. There should be one person left. Her. But. The surname Tendo was meaningless now. Kisara muttered to herself, I wonder, what's Lord Lin's surname? It was time for a name change. Click. Suddenly. A young man in black ran over, looking flustered. He paused the moment he caught sight of Kisara. Kisara. Then his gaze dropped to the blood-stained demon blade in her hand. Rentaro's expression changed drastically as he rushed toward the Tendo residence. Moments later. He returned, face grim and eyes bloodshot. He glared at Kisara. Tendo. Kisara. He clenched his fists, voice trembling as he called her name. Why? Why would you do this? Kisara looked at him coldly. Isn't revenge perfectly normal? Rentaro let out a bitter laugh, trembling with rage. This kind of unjustified slaughter. I absolutely cannot allow it. Kisara sneered, as if looking at a complete fool. What she did? Did it need his approval? Her expression blanked out, her tone turning cold and dull. As for me, I truly despise those self-righteous types. Boom. Her black hair whipped wildly in the wind, black aura coiling around her body. The whites of her eyes were gradually dyed pitch black. She raised her sword and pointed it directly at Satomi Rentaro. If you've chosen that side, then you're also an enemy. Sword Ghost Shura Devil Mode. Revenge Devil target marked, Satomi Rentaro. Queen of Revenge, special attack activated. Devil transformation, final evil finisher. All physical stats increased drastically. The more evil the intent, the faster the transformation completes. Whoosh. Kisara vanished like a gust of wind, disappearing from Rentaro's vision in an instant. Rentaro's pupils shrank violently. His prosthetic eyes zoomed in, trying to track Kisara's movements. No. Nothing. Still nothing. Clang. His combat instincts made him raise his arm in desperation, blocking just in time. The sound of metal clashing rang out. His sleeve tore open, revealing a glowing blue mechanical prosthetic. Oh! Kisara showed a flash of surprise. She hadn't expected Rentaro to be hiding something like this. Nor had she expected the prosthetic's quality to be so high. But she had no intention of facing him head-on. She twisted her body. Using her sheer speed, she slipped behind Rentaro. Swish! A blade pierced straight through his chest. Cough! Blood gushed from his mouth, his eyes filled with disbelief. He never imagined the always sickly Miss Kisara would have this kind of terrifying strength. Satomi Rentaro. Take your hypocrisy. And join that old bastard Tendo Kikunojo in hell. He should be waiting for you there. The Tokyo incident left everyone in fear. People hid inside their homes, eyes filled with dread, constantly cursing the cursed children. A few days later, the riots began to die down. Among the survivors, some brave individuals stepped out to check the situation. The streets were quiet and desolate. But There were no signs of any cursed children. The survivors breathed a collective sigh of relief. If only those cursed children stayed gone forever. Damn it! What the hell's the government doing these days? What are the police even here for? Just as their curses echoed. Seatonchi's residence. Seatonchi opened the sealed records of the legacy of the 7 stars. Then, the first official conscription order was issued. Stage V Gastria is landing in Tokyo. All citizens are to report to the front line for combat. When the order came through, the survivors were stunned. Them? Fight on the front lines? What a joke! Why should we be the ones fighting? What's the government even for? Where are the cursed children? Let those monsters go fight the Gastria. Yet, only the cursed children can fight those things. A new wave of protests erupted. But soon after, they realized something horrifying. The cursed children were gone. Just as they'd wished. Completely disappeared. That day, humanity finally remembered the terror of the Gastria and the humiliation of being ruled by monsters. After losing the protection of the cursed children, exposed to the Gastria directly, they felt fear, firsthand. No. No. I don't want to fight the Gastria. Panic consumed the masses. Where are the cursed children? Call them out to protect us. Please, please. Cursed children, protect us like before. Come out, hurry. Yes. Yes. We need to pass the cursed children human rights law. We must guarantee their rights. They began preaching fairness. They even started advocating for cursed children's rights. But, again, it wasn't regret. It was fear. They begged relentlessly, offering promises and benefits. But the cursed children never appeared. The city fell silent, then erupted in a wave of curses. Their ugly nature resurfaced once more. No. No. I want out of Tokyo. That one sentence seemed to snap everyone out of it. Stage V Gastria. They couldn't possibly win. Escape. They had to escape Tokyo. The people scrambled, dragging their families, rushing to the airport. To Osaka. To Sendai. Anywhere but Tokyo. The city descended into chaos. But even so, not a single high-ranking official came out to stop them. Because there was only one left among them. Seatonchi stood before her window, silently watching the chaos unfold in Tokyo. Her expression was blank. There was only disappointment. But no. No one is leaving Tokyo. Swish. A blood-stained blade sliced through the air. Airport. Kisara wiped her blade clean and stood at the forefront, with a group of winged cursed children behind her, blocking the exit. No way forward. Her cold voice echoed throughout the airport, sending chills down everyone's spines. Especially after she had just killed someone in front of them. And that's the winged cursed child. Someone's voice trembled. The winged cursed children were unlike the others. These ones would really kill them. But behind them, a wave of Gastria was closing in. And besides, they had numbers. They had power. Charge. To hell with it. I'm getting out of Tokyo today. Blood splattered across the terminal. Kisara and the cursed children didn't hesitate. Their blades fell. One after another. There were only 2 choices. Die. Or become Gastria and turn into experience for the devil's blades. Tokyo, entry only, no exit. A besieged city. No one would be spared. Terror silenced the people. Behind them Gastria. Before them devil-transformed cursed children. They were trapped in despair. At the same time, Lynn was reincarnating over 200,000 cursed children. He summoned more than 200,000 evil pieces at once, pouring his magic into them. The next moment, power. As if an endless wave of energy surged forth. The surging demonic power erupted from Lynn, warping the very air around him. Lynn clenched his fists, heart pounding. One step closer to the Mo level. A few days later, Stage V Gastria. Zodiac, Scorpio. Landed in Tokyo. Gastria the size of mountains, clad in dark shells, slowly advanced toward the Tokyo area. Humans trembled in despair. They wanted to run but couldn't. As for fighting back, just looking at the approaching Gastria made their legs go weak. They couldn't even think of resistance. Why? Why did the cursed children leave them? Why? Why won't the cursed children protect them anymore? Wasn't protecting humanity the cursed children's atonement? They were sinners. So why should they be punished? Even now, there was no repentance. Only resentment. Scorpio moved slowly. But the vanguard it released was enough to destroy all of Tokyo. Stage I, Stage 2. Stage 3. Even Stage 4 Gastria flooded into the city in droves. Without the cursed children to protect them. Even a Stage I Gastria was enough to tear through an ordinary human like paper. At that moment, Tokyo was filled with screams of despair. Shi looked down at the chaos in the Tokyo streets with no emotion. She had completely lost hope in humanity. Even at the end, they only knew how to curse and resent. Humans like these were not worth saving. Shi turned away, without hesitation, and faced Lin sitting in the office chair, his violet eyes calm. She lowered her head. Forgive me, Master Lin. I was too selfish. Lin crossed one leg over the other, his fingers spinning a pen casually. He said nothing. Humans would eventually perish. In the end, their only value was to become permanent Gastria spawn points for his peerage. On the other side, seeing Lin remain silent, Shi's heart filled with fear. She bit her lip, her face flushing red. Then, trembling, she slowly removed her purple dress, revealing her delicate, perfect figure. She knelt on the ground, lowered her head, and performed a flawless three-point dogza. I'm sorry, Master Lin. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. This is the only way I know, to atone for my sins. She understood. Her repeated selfishness had gone too far. She had to atone. But she couldn't think of any other way to redeem herself. Because she couldn't imagine what Lord Lin lacked. Even her body already belonged to him. But this was all she could offer. Her soft voice quivered as her pale skin was tinged with shameful pink. I've studied a little, specifically for this. I hope I can please you. Oh? Lin raised an eyebrow with interest. His eyes roamed slowly over her trembling body, causing every inch of her skin to flinch. He stood up, stepped before her, and looked down upon the kneeling Shi. Then, let me test your results. Why yes. Downstairs. Humans wept in despair. They couldn't escape the Gastria infection. Their bodies twisted and transformed in agony. Upstairs. Shi moaned in devotion. Her voice sang of devilish rebirth and damnation. Tokyo had completely fallen. From top to bottom. Tokyo area. Poof. Psycho cut down a Gastria and glanced around. Then, she sent a message in the group chat. Busujima Psycho, no human survivors found in the port area. That message confirmed that another area of Tokyo had fallen, with no survivors left. So far, Tokyo had completely become a paradise for Gastria. Without the protection of the cursed children, even a Phase V Gastria like Scorpio didn't need to fully enter Tokyo. It was already flattened by the swarms of minions it summoned. Sigma Man, at this rate, let's start forming groups to grind experience. Sigma Man, we'll clear out part of Tokyo first. Sigma Man, remember to switch to iron weapons. After posting the next peerage mission in the group, Lin stood in Shi's office, still in his pajamas. He gazed out the window at the expanse of Tokyo. What a holy land for farming experience. Lin sighed as he watched Gastria occasionally appear in the streets below. And then, he looked off into the distance. Phase V Scorpio was slowly making its way toward Tokyo. Estimated arrival, about 4 days. Tokyo Dungeon Boss. That's the name Lin had given it. The peerage's next target level grinding. There was no way they'd miss such a massive source of experience like Scorpio. Moreover, Lin looked at his panel. The apoptosis genome was faintly flickering. Perhaps completing this ability required a zodiac? In that case, it must be defeated. As for the cursed children in the other areas of the Black Bullet world, Lin had already handed them over to the 200,000 cursed children in his command. Among them were a few familiar faces like Inju Ihara, for instance. But there weren't any particularly special ones. Lin had already expected that, so he wasn't disappointed. In short, with 200,000 lower-level devil soldiers and more cursed children who would be reincarnated as devils later, it was more than enough to flatten this world. Lin only needed to wait for his peerage to harvest enough experience and then ascend to the level of Mu. So, while his peerage members were forming parties and grinding, Lin returned to his main world. Meanwhile, the Black Bullet world was in complete chaos after Tokyo's fall. Osaka. The high-level meeting of the association had fallen into silence. Didn't Tokyo request support from the outside? They looked confused. In the blink of an eye, a city that had managed to preserve human life had been overrun by Gastria. Not a single bit of news had made it out. Shiba heavy weapons. Shiba Mayuri stared blankly at the headline about Tokyo's fall, her delicate fingers tightly clutching the newspaper in her hands. At the same time, 200,000 cursed children were deployed across various parts of the world. Shuchin Academy. Faculty Guidance Office. Natsuki Minamiya stared at Lin, her eyes filled with irritation. You actually remembered to come back to school. Lin sat down in front of her and shrugged. I couldn't help it, I've been really busy lately. Busy? Natsuki sneered. Busy building your harem. Just thinking about the girls around the academy made her furious. This lustful devil was seriously corrupting the atmosphere of Shuchen Academy. Lin raised both hands. Hey, how can you call the peerage of a devil a harem? Natsuki kept sneering. What's the difference? Well, at least it sounds better. Looking at Natsuki, who had gone speechless, Lin made another invitation with a smile. How about it, Natsuki-chan? Want to become part of my heir peerage? Natsuki's face instantly darkened. This lustful devil clearly almost said harem. He wasn't even trying to hide it. She stood up and swung the folding fan in her hand. You shameless, lustful devil! Snap! A crisp sound rang out in the office. But the folding fan didn't strike Lin's head as expected. Natsuki looked at her folding fan. It seemed to have hit an invisible air wall. Her expression subtly changed. Has this lustful devil grown stronger again? To the point that he can now release magic power so casually? Natsuki frowned. I'm asking seriously, don't you think your growth speed is a bit too fast recently? She was truly puzzled by this rate of increase. Wanna know? Lin grinned. Join my peerage and I'll tell you. Natsuki looked away, replying flatly, not interested. Just a reminder, she added, tapping the desk with her folding fan and creating a sharp sound. As a devil, your peerage members should at least have decent quality, right? In other words, stop bullying the ordinary students of Shuchen. Looks like Natsuki-chan doesn't trust the strength of my peerage. Lin stroked his chin and then suddenly suggested, how about expanding our previous cooperation and having my peerage help you? Although Yuta and the others had traveled through 2 worlds by now, they still didn't fully understand the situation in the main world. Having them follow Natsuki and gain experience would be beneficial. And while grinding, they could also earn rewards. Even though the peerage currently held 2 worlds, there were still no extraordinary items to offer. You sure? Natsuki opened her folding fan, covering the lower half of her face, eyes filled with doubt. Just those students like Kazuma Jayaka Yuta? But she did need help. And she was too lazy to deal with the official forces. Although Lin was a devil, they had worked together for a long time and understood each other well. After thinking for a moment, she nodded. Fine. But you'd better not hold me back. Lin smiled silently. He was confident in Yuta and the others. Alright, back to business. What do you need me to do? Lin sat up straight, looking her in the eyes. The grade 1 cursed item we applied for previously. It's arriving soon. Lin raised an eyebrow in surprise. He'd been so busy in the Black Bullet world lately that he'd almost forgotten about it. They didn't wait long before someone knocked on the office door. Come in. Swish. The door opened. A beautiful girl with flowing black hair like a night waterfall walked in. Her amethyst-like eyes drew attention immediately. Izayama Yomi. I came from Kyoto. Natsuki gave a brief introduction. Lin looked at her, and saw the evil piece on his panel light up. Another potential peerage member. But right now, his peerage already had enough members. There were still millions of cursed children waiting to be fed in the Black Bullet world. So Lin wasn't in a rush to recruit more ordinary members. Of course. If the opportunity presented itself, he wouldn't turn it down. Izayama Yomi was direct and efficient. She took out the grade 1 cursed item she was carrying. Word Spirit, Twisted Mirror. Izayama Yomi placed a cracked bronze mirror on the table. This mirror is the true form of the word Calamity Yokai, sealed away by the legendary Abe no Sime. Yomi calm, cold voice introduced the twisted mirror. Lin listened for a moment and got a general idea of its ability. It can distort the outcome of reality to a certain extent. After finishing her task, Yomi prepared to leave. Lin handed her a devil's recruitment flyer. Yomi's expression shifted subtly as she recognized it. As someone from an official organization that dealt with the supernatural, she naturally knew a bit about devils and angels. This. Yomi looked at Natsuki. Natsuki glanced at Lin, then sighed, take it. It might come in handy. Even she was a bit confused by Lin's current level of power. Having that flyer might save her life in a pinch. Although there was a good chance that if the moment came, she'd be dragged into Lin's peerage. After some hesitation, Yomi still placed the leaflet in her pocket. After she left, Natsuki didn't look too pleased. You're targeting someone again, you lustful devil. Lin shrugged. Call it a precautionary move. Who knows, maybe something will come of it. Dash. Black Bullet World. Lin handed the twisted mirror to Maiko. Distorted reality. Maiko blinked, confused. After thinking it over, she turned her attention to Agastria. Normally, it would crawl through the alley ahead. She aimed the twisted mirror at it and focused her thoughts. The Gastria, which should have gone through the alley, crashed into the wall. Maiko's eyes lit up. So that's how it works. Yuako floated over with an envious look. When will I get a weapon? Everyone had switched to Vernium weapons. But this was just a workaround for now. Lynn stroked his chin, deep in thought. The peerage's weapons needed to be upgraded soon. Aside from the twisted mirror that Maiko just received, even Psycho's blade was still just iron, veranium. Other than being able to suppress gastria regeneration, it provided no additional bonuses. He couldn't help but think of the artifacts in the main world. Sacred gears were rare. You only found them if fate allowed it. If only there were a world specialized in providing weapons. A few days later, Lynn's peerage began their preparations to hunt the Stage V Scorpio. Before the battle, Lynn updated the blessings of his peerage members. Psycho, Yuta, and Maiko all had significant boosts to their stats. Except for Yuako, Hana, and the newer members, the rest had advanced to intermediate devil level. It was worth noting that she and Mahiru's agility and magic had both reached S rank. Shizuka's durability had also reached S. Phew. Finally a mid-class devil. Shizuka was naked, holding her updated blessings in hand. She stretched lazily. Then she cracked her shoulders and arms, sighing, "I'm so tired." Mahiru clutched her blessings info and let out a small sigh of relief. Even if she wasn't as fast as Psycho and the others, at least she wasn't too far behind. Alright. Lynn clapped his hands. Next let's begin the Scorpio raid. Chapter 100, Hagyo Romochitsune? Outskirts of the Tokyo metropolitan area. Lynn stood quietly with a group of his peerage members. In front of them stood the massive figure of Scorpio. So big. Shizuka stared in awe, took a step back, and quickly hid behind Psycho. Psycho glanced at her speechlessly but didn't say anything. After all, Shizuka was a recovery devil. As long as she did her job as the nurse, that was enough. Psycho retracted her gaze and focused on Scorpio. Her thirst for battle surged uncontrollably. But before that, they needed to clear out the surrounding monsters first. Psycho looked at the gastria charging toward them. Her target was a stage 4. Maiko looked a little worried. Her ability as a spirit-seer devil was extremely effective against spiritual beings. But when it came to physical combat, she was completely lacking. It felt like she was the one gaining the least from this monster feast. Yuako was eager to go. Her eyes were filled with nothing but excitement. In any case, gastria couldn't see her. Seeing that they were all ready to charge in, Lynn waved forward. "Let's go. No opponents ahead of us." As soon as Lynn spoke, Psycho bolted forward like an unleashed beast. Along the way, she cut down a group of stage I, 2, and 3 gastria in succession, charging straight toward the higher grade ones. Now equipped with a forged veranium weapon, Psycho was like a goddess of slaughter. If gods stood in her way, she'd cut down gods. If Buddhas blocked her path, she'd kill Buddhas. Kisara scoffed and dashed forward, unwilling to be outdone. Her swordsmanship had always been exceptional. Before becoming a devil, her weak body limited her to brief bursts of strength. But even then, she could injure a stage 4 gastria with a single strike. Now that she had undergone devil transformation, Kisara's combat power had only grown stronger. Mahiru and Yuta also began making their way toward the great IVs. After all, they were all mid-class devils. They couldn't let Psycho and Kisara steal all the spotlight. Only Maiko looked around awkwardly before grabbing Hana's arm and speaking righteously. "Hana, let me help you level up." "Hi." Hana blinked in surprise, then smiled happily. "Okay. I finally get to fight alongside Maiko." She placed her hands on her hips, full of enthusiasm, and pointed at a gastria ahead. "Let's go take down that big one, Maiko." Maiko followed her gaze, and her eyelid twitched before she forced a smile. Hana, that one's still a bit too much for you. How about we start with that instead?" She pointed at a slightly larger but still manageable stage 3. Hana blinked, confused. "But it looks so small." "It's fine." Before she could protest, Maiko dragged her off to pick a fight with the grade 3. Meanwhile, Yuako floated in the air, occasionally picking fights with the gastria to collect experience. Although the gastria couldn't see her, she also couldn't instantly destroy any above stage 3. Besides, leveling by herself was just more efficient. Everyone in the peerage was working hard to gather experience. Except one person. Shizuka stood beside Lynn, waving her fists. "Go get everyone. I've prepared enough recovery items for all of you." Lynn's eyelid twitched. He raised his hand and gave her a hard smack on her plump rear. Smack. The crisp sound was strangely satisfying. "You should be grinding too," he said unhappily. Shizuka rubbed her behind, then reluctantly shuffled off to pick a fight with the gastria. A short while later, the battlefield was filled with shouts like, "Thunder strike! Come on! Let me kill you! You're an enemy too!" Lynn observed the chaos for a moment, and after confirming that no one was in any real danger, his gaze shifted toward Scorpio. With every step Scorpio took, the apoptosis genome on Lynn's panel grew brighter. He was very curious, just what kind of change would this ability undergo once Scorpio was defeated. Dash. At the same time, after handing the cursed item to Lynn, Izayama Yomi didn't return to Kyoto immediately. Although a grade 1 cursed item did require the escort of a senior official, that wasn't her main reason for being here. She had come to Tokyo for another mission. Delivering the cursed item was just a side job. Coffee shop. A petite, slender girl sat across from Izayama Yomi. She wore a beret that gently covered her light golden hair, and her clear purple pupils shimmered with intelligence. Izayama Yomi took a sip of coffee and said calmly, "Miss Goddess of Wisdom, please explain the situation." Iwanaga Kodoko. Just call me Kodoko. Iwanaga Kodoko smiled lightly, her demeanor refined and noble. All right, Miss Kodoko. Izayama nodded and stared directly into her eyes. Kodoko sighed. You've barely touched your coffee since arriving, and you're staring at me like you're interrogating a suspect. How rude. Apologies. Though Yomi said the words, her expression remained unchanged. Her eyes never left Kodoko. All right, all right. Kodoko raised her hands in surrender, then stood up and said, instead of listening to me talk, why don't you see it for yourself? Dash. After passing through a barrier, an unassuming shrine came into view. Yomi's expression grew sharp. Kodoko said, when I noticed something wrong here, I had them seal it off. Yomi looked up, her gaze serious. A demonic aura surged into the sky. And, as expected, that is the aura of Hago Romochitsune. Yomi's heart tensed. Clang. She instinctively drew Rang Yuran and prepared to investigate. Kodoko quickly pulled her arm back, speaking with a complicated expression, are you really going to just charge in? Yomi paused, looking at her with a puzzled expression. Kodoko's mouth twitched. Are you sure you can handle it alone? Shouldn't you report this to your department? Kodoko's emotions were clearly unsettled. If she hadn't been drawn in by Yomi's identity with the Supernatural Disaster Countermeasures Division, she never would have brought her to a place like this. And did she just say Hago Romochitsune? Wasn't that a renowned yokai? Could a high school girl like her really deal with something related to that? Yomi hesitated, then shook her head. I don't know. But if we wait any longer, I'm afraid it'll be too late. Her expression was firm, eyes filled with determination. Truthfully, she was confident. She had already resolved 6 incidents involving the scent of Hago Romochitsune on her own. It wasn't a problem. But still, she couldn't guarantee she'd never fail. Sigh, stubborn girl. Kodoko had a headache. If she'd known, she wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. But don't worry. Yomi suddenly thought of something and decided to reassure Kodoko. She pulled out the devil flyer Lynn had given her. What's this? Kodoko blinked in confusion. Devil summoning flyer. As long as I inject magic into it, a devil will appear to assist me. Of course. There'll be a price afterward. Hi. Kodoko was stunned. You're a human. And an exorcist. And you want to summon a devil? Even though she wasn't all that familiar with devils, she'd heard a bit from the yokai. Still, this was the first time she'd seen something like a devil summoning leaflet in person. Well, even if relying on a devil was disgraceful for a human, at least it was still an option. At the very least, Kodoko felt a bit more at ease. Of course. That depended on whether the devil was strong enough. Alright. Then focus. Black Bullet World. The sky had grown dark. Psycho and Kisara were still fighting. The two had, at some point, started to compete with each other in unspoken understanding. Other areas were handled by Yuta and Mahiru. Seeing that they were all panting with exhaustion, Lin clapped his hands and called them back. Next. It was time for Scorpio. Leave the remaining Gastria to Hana and the others. All the high-level Gastria had been eliminated. The leftovers were perfect for Hana and the other low-class devils to train on. The raid on Scorpio wasn't suitable for them. Not only were they incapable of damaging it, Hana's chaotic use of brute force made it painful to watch. Lin was honestly worried she'd end up slipping and launching herself straight into Scorpio's mouth. For the Scorpio raid, he would take the lead. Partly to test his current strength. And partly because of the apoptosis genome. But before that, he needed to replenish his magic. Looking at Psycho and the others crying out for food, Lin began magic replenishment for them, one by one. Why is it always like this? Shizuka puffed her cheeks in frustration. Ever since everyone in the peerage found out that Lin's magic replenishment had the same effect as her recovery items, her handmade supplies had been completely abandoned. I worked so hard to make them. She complained while joining the line, looking at Lin with hopeful eyes. Yuta rolled her eyes at her and muttered, aren't you the same? You don't even use what you make, yet you expect others to drink it. Before long. Magic supply complete. Everyone in Lin's peerage turned their attention to Scorpio. Psycho's eyes grew solemn. The casual air from earlier had vanished. No matter who you were, facing a beast of this scale would make anyone tense. Just rolling over could collapse an entire area. Ha! So it's finally time. Yuta gripped the devil tome tightly. She wasn't even sure whether her strongest lightning strike could damage it. As if sensing the group's gaze, Scorpio paused for a moment. Then it opened its massive mouth and let out a roar. Yain. The sound was sharp and piercing. The air trembled, whipping their clothes into the air. Lynn frowned. That cry sounded more like weeping. To be continued.